You know, I think you can make the argument that when you say LGBT people have been historically marginalized, that's definitely true. That's definitely not really true publicly in the last 5 to 10 years.
In what way?
It seems like what do you mean? Like if someone comes out as LGBT, you know, everyone in the school is clapping. You know, it's like a big. A lot of people are. A lot of children are doing this in friend groups.
This is 100% the feels, fellas. I got to tell you, broadly speaking, LGBTQ, especially if you're trans people, are overwhelmingly overrepresented in unemployment, in homelessness, in being kicked out of their families. They have the highest rates of suicide amongst children.
Yeah,
well, that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about people who have. Yeah, but we're talking about people who are, broadly speaking, overwhelmingly marginalized. Hey, can you hear me?
What's up? We can hear you, yes.
Nice. Worked out first try. No challenge.
Nice. I hope you gentlemen are doing well today.
Yeah, how's your show been?
With another long debate, so you will have us at an advantage of being so... yeah, your favorite YouTuber. Oh, we have to talk about this. We just got through a very long conversation with your favorite YouTuber, Sargon of Akkad.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
How was that? I was just watching internet comment etiquette where he challenged Sargon to a fight, and Sargon thought he meant a debate.
Oh, what he meant, like he wants to box him or something?
Yeah, there's like this big new thing where apparently big YouTubers box each other.
Clash.
Yeah. Right. So he challenged. He challenged Sargon to a clash.
Right. That's ridiculous.
Did Sargon accept, or is there a fight?
Assuming he did not.
He did not. Which is funny because internet comments etiquette's like performance in his first creator clash, he got absolutely tooled in that event.
Who did he fight?
I can't remember. I'd have to look it up.
Okay. Listen, Sargon's a philosopher. Okay.
He is. A philosopher king.
Right.
So DJ Welsh, that's it.
Listen, we have to preface this conversation. Okay, Adam is very afraid because...
You gonna tell him? The chat was like, don't tell Lance.
We have to tell Lance.
Okay. This is our good faith move here, Lance.
That's right.
Okay. Take this.
That's right. This is 100% good faith. Okay.
I find, Adam, you very good faith. I'll be totally honest with you. This is not me placating to your chat. I know they hate me, but I find you to be a very good faith individual, especially behind the scenes. If anyone doesn't know, Adam will be very pleasant in emails. He's even sent me.
Well, I try to be.
That means he's bad faith. What are you talking about?
No, he'll be
so nice in emails, and he reams you on stream because he's a bad faith individual.
No, he'll try to send me like his views on Marxism and stuff like that. He's actually
that's adorable.
He's a bit of a sweetheart behind the scenes.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know this. Wait, am I not good faith? You just said Adam's good faith.
Oh, I don't communicate with you, so I don't know. I can't
I don't communicate with anyone. Yeah. But you communicate with me right now, okay?
So sorry, what's the secret? What's the big revelation?
Anyway, the secret is before you came on stream, we had another guest on who was not Carl. It was not Carl. I want to make it clear. This was not Carl. We had another guest. I'm not joking. There was another guest on who dropped the F slur right before they left.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't want you to clip that and send it to Carlos Maza and get it. Okay.
You guys can have your F slurs. You're safe with me. Don't worry.
I disavow. I
disavow, and
we disavow 100%. We do not use such language.
I felt very triggered by the whole thing because this is the first time this guy's come on our stream. We invite him on our stream to have a good faith conversation, and he drops the F slur on the way out the door, which means we can't repost the video, which we normally do on Tuesdays. So I mean,
can't you just edit that part out or just like mute it?
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, we do like 10-hour streams, and it's a big headache. So I mean, he definitely spit in our face on the way out the door. So we disavow, obviously.
But it wasn't Sargon.
Don't run the Carlos. It wasn't Sargon. No, it was this other. It was another Brit bonger.
Yeah.
I know they all sound the same, but
in the interest of good faith, gentlemen, I will not clip and ship. I'm not worried.
Thank you.
You're safe.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So why did you bring in Matt? Which Matt, we saw you on Tim Pool's show.
Oh yeah,
Timcast, which was pretty fun. So
that was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So Lance, you are basically admitting that you're going to lose in this debate. You got to bring in a heavy hitter like Matt.
I wouldn't be able to handle myself otherwise, and I just knew I needed to bring in Matt. He's the debate lord of the left right now. You know,
he did he held his own on Tim Pool. He did pretty decent on Tim Pool. So
actually, I think Matt is great. One of the reasons I wanted to bring him on, though, is he has done a lot of investigation into the Libs and TikTok fiasco. And I'll just be upfront. I'm not actually looking for an evisceration to occur here. I'm getting closer and closer to this kind of mentality that, the world is fucked, shit is fucked up, and there's less. Well, it's true. There's less and less conversations between. I guess you guys would be the center. Align yourself as centrists, right? Less conversations with centrists and leftists that don't result in one side calling the other a Nazi and the other side calling the other side a groomer, right? So I
feel like Lance has just evolved. Okay, he just ate his rare candy and he's evolved and becoming the next step. I like this. I'm a big fan of it.
I've matured finally. Yeah, as I'm getting closer to 40. It's finally happening.
Are you really 40?
No. I said I'm getting closer to 40.
Oh, well, what's close?
Like late 30s.
Uh-oh.
Lance is like 21. Okay, look at him. He's like a little, it's a baby faced child.
I know. Okay. I know. The quartering calls me a fetus, so I'm like, all right, well, I'll take that.
So I know.
It's a compliment at this point.
Okay. I know that you said you guys only have an hour. I have a few questions that I wanted to ask. But I know you have questions that you want to ask about the Libs of TikTok thing. So do you just want to do like a back and forth thing?
Yeah. When you start, what are your questions?
Okay. Well, I was wondering if you were coming here to convert us to socialism.
I mean, if that's the end result, that would be a hell of an achievement.
Would be.
Do you think I'm curious if you think that's like a possibility? I know a lot of people have these.
No, I don't have delusions of grandeur where I think by talking to you for an hour, I'm suddenly going to change all of your deep philosophical beliefs.
we could talk again. This could be like the first step on our road to socialism.
True. Why not? No, it was more about clearing the air. I think I watch obviously a lot of right wingers and right wing pundits specifically, and the way they were kind of reporting on Libs of TikTok was I think in my opinion deeply mistaken. To say the very least. And so I know your audience is a mix, right? You guys, obviously, you're both centrists and you have both right-wingers on your show and people on the right who watch you. So I kind of wanted to just kind of, I don't know, iron some of that out would be my goal.
Sure.
That would probably be the most ideal thing.
Just before we move on from the socialist question, Matt, I don't know if you're a socialist or not. I've watched some of your videos on the scam economy where you talk about cryptocurrency, which I think we have a lot of agreement on. But I'm a capitalist, so you probably think part of the scam of a economy is like stocks and bonds and stuff like that too.
In a sense, but it's not the same, to be quite honest. In fact, on the show, on my show, Scam Economy, I do two shows. A show that's like a leftist perspective of what's going on the right, and then I do Scam Economy, which is a show about crypto. It's an anti-crypto show. And obviously I have my issues with capitalism and the stock market, but at the same time, the difference is that at least technically when you invest in the stock market, you are investing in something. Yes. Like you actually get to own a share in a company. Now we can discuss all the different little backroom deals that are made and all the insider information that retail investors aren't privy to, and that's, in my estimation, would be something I guess you could throw under the scam economy. But at its core, I don't think at least under the system we live under, the stock market is the same as crypto. Crypto is worthless. It's a Ponzi scheme. There is nothing you invest in. You're literally just throwing your money at the casino, and the casino, if you're lucky, will dish you out more money than you put in. And for most people, it'll end up dishing you out less money than you put in, if any money at all.
Right. So, but you are a capitalist, it sounds like. So, but no, you have criticisms of capitalism, but you.
I would consider myself a socialist, but I also realize that we live where we live now, and we have to.
Are you defining
live in the moment?
Are you defining socialism as the abolition of private property, or are you defining socialism as just like universal health care? Because we're for universal health care. So I mean,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, baby steps in a beautiful utopian scenario. There would be, but I'd be happy, honestly, with just universal healthcare, at least in the coming decades. You know what I mean?
Okay. Well, we could join you. We'll just
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking because maybe we'll have another debate on socialism, those are always fun. So
I could
taking
quickly
up too
answer that
much.
question though, Adam. I mean, I think most socialists define it as workers owning the means of production. So I
Yeah,
mean, in
worker
practical,
co-ops,
yeah, worker co-ops would be a
Yeah.
practical version of that. And I know a lot of people get upset when you talk about worker co-ops in relation to all work, because they're like, why would a burger flipper have the same kind of control in a company as the manager? That doesn't make any sense to me. And that's not actually the way they operate. You would just have the ability to vote who exactly is going to be your CEO or manager in the company on a regular basis. And on top of that, you would still have a structure in which there are people who are more inclined to be managers, people who are more inclined to organizing and overseeing a group of people, and then there are people who prefer to work behind a computer, for example. So that's the way most modern worker co-ops or even massive umbrella corporations like the Mondragon Corporation usually organize and structure themselves.
Do you think that liberalism inherently leads to socialism?
I think the argument would be closer to that there are going to be enough problems built into the capitalist system itself that it's going to lead to alternatives. And historically, that's usually is the pathway between what, like fascism, outright dictatorships, or socialism is usually where it leads. Like I think most economists who advocate for this will say in capitalism, every 4 to 7 years, you experience a recession or depression, something to that nature, and that inherently is going to result in a whole bunch of people either losing their jobs or having a harder time or that kind of stuff. I mean, ideally, what I usually advocate for, if I advocate for socialism, is maximizing freedom. Like in the same way the two of you enjoy the democratic process, I'm sure we like having the freedom to vote for who we want to represent us in politics. I want to extend that freedom to where you spend about 8 hours of your day every day. So, you know, you have more freedom in the workplace to be able to control the environment where you spend the majority or half of your life.
For now, I would just like all workers to have the ability to join a union. That would be the most direct first thing, and then from there we can work out the rest. But you know, I like to sort of deal with scenarios that are reachable at this very moment. Philosophical discussions are fun, but I think, you know, if someone's listening to this now and they work at a shitty 9-to-5 job and they're, you know, flipping burgers or you know, mopping floors or something, you know, the discussion that would most directly help them would be, you should be in a union so you could, you know, collectively bargain and organize and you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Do you know MMT, Matt? Modern monetary theory?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not the expert on it. I would like to say I've read people who are, and yeah, I'm familiar with it, and I agree with it. Yeah.
I'm an expert in modern monetary theory, so yeah.
Why are you laughing?
If you want to
Sitch?
come back sometime, because my confidence in this. He's laughing because the chat despises when we talk about modern monetary theory, even though, I mean, I think I pretty much am an expert. So, but anyway,
okay. Well,
but I'm just curious why.
What do you want to move?
Well, I'm just curious.
I think they just get bored talking about.
Okay. Yeah, there's no blood sports in MMT.
Well, no, I mean, no, listen, we always have guests on, usually from our chat, and we get in these very long, heated arguments about MMT, but it's very, you know, unless you're like really deep into this analysis and shit of economics, it's lost on like most people.
The last one did get, I mean, it got spicy. I mean, it was.
Yeah, you need to be nicer, Adam. Okay.
I know, I'm working on it. I'm definitely working on it. Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk about.
He scoffed at me. What was I supposed to do?
Oh my God! Don't scoff at Adam. It gets him very upset. So what was the issue with coverage of Libs of TikTok that other people were doing?
Matt, do you want to start this?
Where do you want to start?
You had an interview. You had an interview with, I can't remember the name.
Taylor Lorenz.
Taylor Lorenz. Yes, she's the Washington Post reporter who you know, found out who the Libs of TikTok is.
Yeah. Found out is an interesting way to put it. Sometimes people call that doxing. So
yeah, I mean, I think doxing is sort of a loaded term. I mean,
it is. That's why they use it.
Yeah, right. I mean, journalists have been doing this for as long as there's been journalism, right? Find someone who's doing something that affects a swath of people, and they're trying to do it anonymously, right, so they can do it without any consequences or repercussions. And journalists find out who they are if it serves the greater public, and then they go ahead and say, this is who this person is, who's been, doing what they've been doing. So, doxing to me is more so like, when someone on some, some image board like 4chan just scoops up some like random YouTuber's address or something, post it up there just so, people could fuck with them and do, and like swat them or some shit. Like that's the doxing I think most people historically, it sounds weird to say historically on the internet, but genuinely, more generally, that's what doxing has been used for in, when I've encountered the term. I know, again, it's been broadened out now for the very same reasons that you just mentioned. But yeah, I don't think like uncovering who an anonymous public figure is the same as just, just doxing some rando on the internet to unleash harassment at them.
Well, I mean, I think putting some, YouTuber's address out there because you want to swat them, you want to harass them, essentially. I don't see that as, I mean, obviously it's a difference in degree, but conceptually, it doesn't seem that different than saying, I want to put this person's name and face out there to get them, fired from their job or to suffer some other repercussion for their opinion.
Well, to be fair, this person lives of TikTok, whose name is HARASSMENT. She sort of is more of a public figure and has like a direct effect on politics, unlike what some like random YouTuber would. I mean, she's on record, in fact, even privately in emails that were leaked by someone who tricked her into reporting on something that they just fully made up. That she like brags that she has direct lines of communication with the Texas Attorney General, with the DeSantis administration in Florida. I mean, that's someone who's pretty powerful. I mean, if I had a direct line of communication to someone, I think it would be like if I had a direct line of communication to like the Biden administration or like the governor of New York or something, I think it'd be fair game to know who I am. So people can know what type of person is like sort of influencing these very powerful people.
Could I also say, by the way, I have no problem with people posting SJW cringe compilations. Like, have at it, right? Like there's thousands of those channels on YouTube. There's tons of people who are constantly posting, hey, look at this, it's libs and leftists embarrassing themselves. Fine, go nuts, right? If someone is publicly posting on their own social media kind of like events or things that they've done, and then you want to laugh at it and make fun of it, go nuts, right? Like I have no problem with that practice at all. The thing that I took a lot of issue with the Libs at TikTok account is that she would specifically take videos of people who were talking about things related to LGBTQ+, right? And then label them as pedophiles or groomers, which does have very serious real world consequences. In certain cases, it could get teachers fired from their jobs. They would get death threats. The schools would get death threats. So that's where I think that account specifically crossed the line.
Well, relating to what Matt said first, well, first of all, I'm a little skeptical when someone like Libs of TikTok or anyone claims they have, the hotline to some important person. To me, this really comes off from a lot of people as like, them bragging that they sent an email to someone once and got a response or something. So,
But you saw the account would publicly do tweets where there would actually be
I saw
Ron DeSantis's press secretary would respond to those tweets.
I saw that.
For Texas, we sort of have to just go by her word. But when it comes to Florida, we know that Ron DeSantis.
Well, we know that they know that
press secretary.
We know that her press secretary used a Libs of TikTok example or whatever. It probably asked for the source information. I wouldn't classify that as a direct line, but regardless, to me, the issue is, I don't see how their identity is relevant to whether you criticize them or anyone criticize them for doing the right or wrong thing. You could just say, listen, this person's wrong philosophically or morally or whatever. I don't see how their name affects really anything about that story. other than possibly just getting them fired or whatever.
So where do you set the bar then? So like if someone say grows, like you can consider it, let's just call it like a media empire, right? You've grown your social media or your YouTube channel or your Twitter account to 100,000, 500,000, 750,000 followers. So you have a lot of power, clout on the internet, right? You then use that account specifically to target people who are LGBTQ plus and then label them as pedophiles or groomers. And then on top of that, you have actual politicians, press secretaries who are interacting with you, interacting with your tweets and posts, and then using them as the basis for either forming policy or doing all kinds of other stuff. I think at that point, it's kind of, in my personal opinion, crossed the line into this is newsworthy. We've like, this is something, this is worth, this is in the public interest to talk about.
Well, it might fit that definition of public interest, but I'm asking, what is the purpose of the person's name being out there? How does that change the conversation at all?
I don't think the purpose of the story itself was to simply say, by the way, this is who Libs of TikTok is, end of sentence, or print, right? It was like, this is the story in and of itself, and within that story, we're going to identify the person who, by the way, publicly revealed their own name in the domain registry. It was already a matter of public knowledge if you were able to look into it.
I understand what you're saying, and I think I don't have any fault for Taylor writing a story where she criticizes Libs of TikTok, especially if Libs of TikTok was taking people out of context or doing something wrong. But to me, it really, and even when I was listening to her conversation with you, Matt, it seemed kind of like a lot of trying to get her name was fishing for, is this someone who has a job somewhere that we can get in trouble? And that to me, I think, is how it rubs a lot of people on the right that way.
Well, it's also relevant. Well, honestly, if you have someone working for you who's running this horrible account and you find out, I think you have every right to be upset with that, especially if it's not something you agree with. I think that's completely fair. And if someone's fine with it too, then that's fair for that company to keep them on board. I mean, I don't really have an issue either way.
They get like huge public backlash if they didn't fire them.
Also, how the Libs of TikTok account doing not just journalism? Like if they're just basically reposting videos that people are posting publicly. I mean, I understand that you're characterizing it as attacking them or painting them in a negative light, but
I have direct examples of that from the tweets that she's still left up because she's deleted a ton of her tweets already. Okay. Like if it's just her
really quick, I just want to really quick. That's another thing too, though, why it's important to sort of know who this person is. Clearly they were doing something with some of these tweets that could get them in trouble, where previously when they were anonymous, they were fine with doing. There was no legal repercussions they could worry about. Clearly, she had to go through and scrub her account of tweets that possibly crossed the line and could get her into legal trouble because, I mean, she scrubbed so many of them while also leaving up a bunch of old ones too. So she clearly was scrubbing specific ones as well. I think the way she treats her account is certainly going to be different and has been at least a little bit different in terms of how directly she goes after someone because her name is out there and there are legal repercussions for smearing someone and saying something that's just not true and adding a little bit of her own flavor in there to rile up her audience.
So just to be clear here, you're saying that she's posting their content and then adding her own critique on 100%. Top of that.
Yeah. So Adam, I can point to a direct example of that. One of the ones that she's still left up is basically it's a politician's husband who's giving this, like, instead of a pledge of allegiance to the flag of America, he's doing a pledge of allegiance. Pete Buttigieg's husband, he's doing a pledge of allegiance to the Rainbow Parade. Right. So if you want to label that as cringe, or that's basically your criticism of it, like this is cringe, fine, go nuts, do that. But to label them as groomers, just so everyone is clear on this, what a groomer is someone who's trying to elicit a child into having a sexual relationship with them.
That's not true, though.
It's absolutely true. That is the definition of groomer.
But there's this thing that they can do that, this is done all the time in journalism as well. It's done in the case of the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp thing. They can say, listen, this, the intention wasn't for you to think that we're talking about Johnny Depp. We didn't cite Johnny Depp specifically. This is what we meant. So there's obviously multiple interpretations going. And what they're saying, when they're saying groomer, they're talking about grooming them with a political ideology. They're not calling them pedophiles. So, and I realize I know you, I see you smirking, Matt. I know you can say that, they're, really what they mean is that they're pedos, but, they're hiding behind this saying that, they're not, they're just grooming them with a political ideology. But you have to acknowledge that that's a legitimate thing, that it is something.
So
it is a definition.
So Adam, if there was a single example, if there was just one instance in which Libs of TikTok had made a post and said grooming, and then all of a sudden you're going to say, well, I mean, we should basically look at the fact that there's multiple definitions of grooming, even though broadly speaking on the internet, grooming is acceptably known as someone who's trying to elicit a sexual relationship with a child, then that would be one thing. There are multiple posts where she's either used other terms, right, such as pedo, pedophile, stuff like that. So she
has used pedophilia.
She's clearly trying to label people in this respect who are LGBTQ plus as
different though.
Well, I think that's
you can't listen. This is totally unfair, Lance. You can't say that because she called somebody a pedo in one tweet that every time she uses the term groomer she means pedo. Okay. I think it's almost being obtuse, and I say this not trying to insult you, but like in good faith, to try and ignore what her strategy clearly was. There was a very clear pattern of her posting multiple videos of individuals who just happened to be gay or trans, and then adding that characterization towards them. This is a groomer, this is a pedophile, etc. The obtuse position is actually your position, Lance, because you're the one that's saying you can reach into her mind and read the intention that she had. I'm saying I have no idea. Maybe you're correct. Maybe she does mean pedo every time she says groomer,
But if this was a new strategy,
I can't know for sure.
Sure, but you can understand that there's like a long-standing tradition of trying to vilify people who are, say, gay by trying to label them as pedophiles. Historically in the United States, that's been a thing.
Trying to demonize conservatives as Nazis.
Right. And but I'm saying one does not suddenly ignore or erase the other. So just because leftists sometimes rush to being like, you're a Nazi because you say something that I disagree with, sure, that's bad. Call that out. Fuck them. But at the same time, if you are to look at the sum, but if you're going to look at the sum total of what the Libs of TikTok was specifically doing, and not just Libs of TikTok, it would start on Libs of TikTok and then it would reach this entire ecosystem of other right-wing conservatives who would then take it and start to talk about how these people like look at the entire work of James Lindsay, right? I thought, personally, for me, Libs of TikTok takes it too far, but James Lindsay would then take it and be like, groomer, look at this groomer, look at these groomers, and if you think they've completely erase the meaning of that word, well, that's with intent, in my opinion. I think the whole purpose is to both label people as something that is deplorable, which is a pedophile. Everyone can agree. No one likes pedophiles. At the same time, combine
no
that
one likes Nazis. I fucking hate Nazis. I mean, if I like Nazis, bug the shit out of me.
And I'm not here calling you Nazis. I'm just saying that I think it would be ridiculous to try and give Libs of TikTok a pass in this regard to say that they weren't intentionally trying to do that.
Well, I think there's a reason why that they moved over from the word indoctrination to groomer. I mean, they could easily just continue using the word indoctrination, but that doesn't have the same well, that's exactly it. It doesn't have the same connotation, doesn't have the same historical meaning as a groomer. I mean, indoctrinating someone isn't a crime. Grooming someone most definitely is. Like grooming is legal.
Sex, yes.
Well, but that's how it's generally used, and that's the definition it's mostly tied with. I mean, they've been saying indoctrination when it comes to non-LGBTQ, indoctrinating kids into Marxism, indoctrinating kids into socialism. Yet all of a sudden, when we talk about LGBTQ plus, it's grooming. I mean, there's a clear connotation there. I mean, I don't really know how to have this discussion. That's why I've sort of been sitting here waiting for this opening, because I mean, I know what you guys are doing, and I get that argument. Like we can't go into her mind, but we can see what the terminology they use when they're talking about all the other things they don't like about the left, and then when they're talking about gay people, trans people, then all of a sudden that word transforms specifically into grooming. I mean, I don't know how much more clear they can make it without just outright saying we are completely homophobic, transphobic, anti-gay. I mean, this is how they do it.
So I think that actually, I don't think James got it from her. I think she got it from James. I think he was using the OK groomer language before Libs of TikTok. I think he was the first one. And
James was? Lindsay?
I think he might have been. Because I remember, like, months ago, before anyone else started using it, he was using the term groomer, and he meant it both ways. He meant it both that there were people that are grooming kids for political ideologies, and then he also meant that there was this sort of idea that the way to get kids indoctrinated into various aspects of neo-Marxism was through sexualizing them, essentially.
So you'd agree the use of the word groomer in that regard is
what I've
specifically the dictionary definition of it.
Well, no. So what I've said on this topic, whenever it comes up on stream, is I agree completely that obviously the term is used. I think the term is used intentionally for that dual meaning, is intentionally used to get people riled up, to have that like, oh my God, the pedophilia, connotation obviously is baked into it, and people hear that, but also that then they can kind of fall back on and say, well, we're not necessarily saying that any of these people are pedophiles. We're kind of talking about political.
Yeah, but that's just someone doing plausible deniability, right? It's after the fact, being like, well, I wasn't actually calling them pedos. I was trying to say this is about indoctrination instead, right?
I'm not.
Also,
what is to jump? Well, hold on. I'm not willing to jump to that level to say that, oh, all these people think that anything gay or LGBT means you're a pedophile. I definitely know that James Lindsay doesn't think that. I don't know what the Libs of TikTok lady thinks, but I do know that that they're using that word to draw attention because of that connotation. So I agree with you that that's happening. I guess I just don't care that much, because I feel like, unfortunately, the left has kind of opened the door recently for this kind of using language to kind of blanket statement attack people. And it's kind of like, well, you're kind of goosing what's good for the goose, good for the gander in the situation, in terms of labeling everyone racist. But
what's political about that's the thing, that you keep talking about political grooming. Being gay or trans is not like politics. It's like who you are.
The gender identity issue. Well, first of all, the gender identity issue of separating gender strictly from sex is a political issue, and usually is almost always tied into a left-leaning or more leftist philosophy politically.
I mean, I honestly don't see that as political. I mean, it's just who somebody is. I mean, if I think I've had this discussion with Tim Pool, and this is how this went, where I basically said, I mean, so basically conservatives deny that trans people exist. And, I saw later on, he tried to make the claim that, like, in another video with another guest later on, that like I was trying to say that conservatives think like trans people just like aren't there, like they're just like not, they're just invisible or something. No, what I'm saying is like, if conservatives don't think trans people exist, as in that person standing in front of them is not transgender. And Tim said no conservative thinks that, and then his co-host jumped in and said, actually, that's what I think. I don't believe transgenderism is a thing. I mean, if you don't believe that, I mean, it's sort of just, in my view, you're just denying what somebody is. I mean, you don't have to use the pronoun, that person's like pronouns if you don't want to, but it doesn't mean they're not trans. I mean, put that matter of like respect aside. I think to me, it's just not a political issue. It's like,
I understand. I think first of all, I think the language of saying you don't think trans people exist is strange, because I don't think we use that in any other situation that I can think of. Like, if you're talking to, a Scientologist, and they believe they've gone clear and they're a 20 level, can talk to alien ghosts or whatever. Like, you don't believe in it. I assume you don't believe in any of that stuff. And you're not going to like deny that person exists, or you're not going to deny that the person thinks what they think.
Right. But you wouldn't frame
believe them, right? You're not going to say Scientologists don't exist.
But you wouldn't frame that same thing towards, say, like black people, right? Like, you wouldn't say that being black is a political issue in and of itself. I think the same thing applies to trans people. The existence of trans people and their identity or their gender identities is the same thing. It's being made into a political issue against obviously their wishes, right?
Well, no, because you're conflating two different things. You're conflating gender dysphoria, which is a medical condition, with a gender sex ideology.
No, I'm just saying this is the way people are born. Whether or not they're black or they're trans or they're non-binary.
I think people. I agree. I think people are born with a gender identity. Especially, I think gender dysphoria is something people, at least the evidence points to gender dysphoria as being something people are born with. I don't think it's healthy for society to kind of, or for anyone really, to fixate on a medical condition as an identity. I think it should be seen as something like you have a medical condition, you get over it, and then you move on with your life.
But you
like
also understand that not every person who is trans experiences gender dysphoria. Like there are people who experience gender dysphoria.
You're right. You're completely right. And that's where the political ideology comes into, because I personally don't agree or justify most non-binary genders being a thing
so
that I think is real.
Okay.
And I mean, I guess I would be a true scum, because I don't think transgender should relate to people outside of gender dysphoria. And that's where the political issue, I guess, comes into this.
Yeah, or like a biological essentialist, I think is the other way of saying it. That you see it exclusively as a medical condition that needs to be cured. That's it.
How is that biological essentialism?
Well, there's usually an association directly with people. You see the terms that are often used, right? Biological male, biological female. And then on top of that, people who want to understand the trans experience as something that is someone experiences gender dysphoria, at which point they can receive treatment for that, whether or not you approve of that treatment, whether it's puberty blockers at a young age or later on in life, because you're a libertarian, you only think adults are allowed to have it. That's kind of the route that they go down, right? But like...
Right.
So you basically think that non-binary people aren't valid, or they're making it up? Is that it? I'm not trying to.
I mean, well, wait a minute. Well, first of all, before we get into that,
yeah, sure.
You said that that I think gender dysphoria is basically something that is to be cured, and I don't. You said it like as if that's a bad thing. That's literally how it's viewed medically, as a condition to be cured.
It depends on the person, right?
The dysphoria.
Right, the dysphoria. Oh, no, absolutely. Okay. I'm not denying that. I'm saying that there is people who could be trans and they want to, seek treatment in order to do things that will help and alleviate their gender dysphoria. Right. And then there's also people who are trans who don't want to do anything to alleviate their gender dysphoria. They could be non-binary.
Well, there's people that are trans that claim they don't have gender dysphoria. And I'm saying I don't think that's really trans. Or shouldn't be considered trans.
Wasn't your position also though that trans people don't exist because you just view gender dysphoria as a medical condition?
It depends what you mean by trans people existing. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, would you?
Interesting.
If you met a trans woman, would you
acknowledge
understand that she's a trans woman?
Of course, Matt, I would. What do you mean?
Yeah, Matt, you didn't understand the example that he gave. I mean, it was a great example. It's the first I've ever heard it. Is the and I do shows with him all the time. The Scientologist example, okay? You can separate the fact that there's a person who's a Scientologist that believes all of these interesting things that you don't necessarily believe, but you don't say that Scientologist doesn't exist or that their beliefs.
But you're not born a Scientologist is the difference.
Yeah,
right?
That's the issue with that.
You're not born a Christian. You're not born a Muslim. You have to be taught that.
Wait a second. Yeah, we're getting somewhere.
Okay,
you're completely right. But that's my position. I think people with gender dysphoria are born with it. I don't think people who. First of all, I don't even know how you can make this argument.
No. If your position is the Scientology example, then you're saying that you believe they are not born with it.
No. I was just using that as an example for language about saying someone exists or not. Okay. When it comes to gender dysphoria, I understand what you're saying, Scientology. When it comes to gender dysphoria, I do believe people are born with that, and that's why I do. If someone has gender dysphoria and they transition, I'm totally fine using whatever the she or he or whatever their transitioning pronouns. That's not a problem with me. But I don't believe, and I don't even know how anyone can argue this, that when it comes to sort of the more, I don't have gender dysphoria, but I adhere to some socially constructed gender, I don't understand how that could be based on biology if you're saying gender is a social construct.
I'm just out of curiosity, would you have problems using like they them pronouns or stuff like that? Is it like, I mean, that's beyond the
if someone, like if I know someone or someone's on stream they want me to, I will do it. But I'm like, because I'm not an asshole. But yeah, personally, I don't like non-binary pronouns, and I think they reinforce gender stereotypes.
Oh, so you're a gender abolitionist?
I'm in favor of people not being judged based on these biological categories. Yes, if that makes me a gender abolitionist. I mean, I don't want.
Well, I do think it's interesting that you said you would acknowledge their preferred gender.
Yeah, well, I'm not an asshole. Listen.
Yeah, well, I think your position's probably a lot different than most people that I'm assuming you would have on your show or who listen to your show.
Well, honestly. Maybe. I'm not sure.
You guys think we have a bunch of right wingers in our audience, which it's probably 50-50, if not. I mean, we have just as many left wingers.
But wait a minute. Again, I don't. How can someone's socially constructed gender be something they're born with? I don't understand this idea.
So the tools that they would best use in society to be able to identify the way they actually are born and feel through language would be the best way to interpret that, right? So you are born a certain way, you could be non-binary, whatever it is, the way you want to both express that and be represented by that is going to be used by socially constructed tools such as language, pronouns, that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah, but okay, but no, you're complete. That's exactly what's going on. But so what I say is, well, I think these socially constructed tools they don't free people from the stereotypes of gender. They seem to reinforce gender, which I'm against, or reinforce gender stereotypes, which I'm against. So I don't see them. I see them not only as not having utility, but having negative utility.
Yeah.
Are you both on the same page here?
Well, we have a difference of opinion on whether or not people without gender dysphoria should be allowed to transition.
Well, we're not even talking about that. We're just talking about sort of like, do non-binary pronouns reinforce gender stereotypes, which I believe I think they do definitionally.
Well, I think people who are non-binary are trying to buck gender stereotypes by, what is it even? It's like a nondescript, not male, not female thing that they're going for.
It can be a lot of different things.
I mean,
but you basically don't fit it into a gender binary. That's the idea.
I find it interesting, and I have no problem with it. Sitch and I have argued over this. So, I mean, I'm more radical when it comes to believing people should be able to do what they want to do. So, like, I'm in like. This is another place. Like, do you guys think people who don't have gender dysphoria, as it is right now in society, and I realize that trans people are pushing for this. They're saying, listen, I want to be able to transition because I feel like it, even if I don't have gender dysphoria. Like, a lot of people are going and, looking up what gender dysphoria is so they can pretend they have gender dysphoria so they can transition. This
is something I've never heard of.
Really?
I mean, really. I mean, I don't know what people are you talking about, like young kids or something? Are you talking about like adults saying
even well, anyone, I guess.
Anyone
relevant to what Adam's talking about.
I don't know of that existing, to be honest. I mean,
so do you think people should be, so gender dysphoria is a medical condition, as Sitch has said, but I could not have gender dysphoria and just feel like I wanted I guess you would say.
I don't understand the point of this. Are you think people are transitioning to fit in, or for like
explain this poorly, Adam? Okay. Basically, my position is I don't think anyone. This is kind of a completely different topic, but my position is I don't think people should be able to transition unless they have gender dysphoria through surgery and hormones and other stuff.
Do you think people should be able to have
they
like breast
should be
implants?
able to, even if they don't have gender dysphoria, as long as they're 18 or older.
But this seems like a totally separate topic. This is kind of like, should people be allowed to have breast implants? Whether or not you think they should or not, right? It doesn't really. But at the end of the day,
I also don't know of anyone who just wakes up and just decides this. Like, this is not something I've ever. I know a lot of trans people.
I'd like to see the stats on this one.
Well, you're kind of relating it to something else.
Like, I know a lot of trans people who have struggled with this their entire life. This isn't an easy thing. Like, they have to really go through a lot just to finally get to the point where they are ready to transition. And then the cost, both mentally and physically and monetarily. And then many of them have to actually leave the country to be able to do it, to afford it. I mean, this isn't something that someone just wakes up and goes, you know what, I think I'm going to try being trans for the rest of my life.
Matt, this is fascinating to me because I have heard a debate over whether or not people should be able to transition without gender dysphoria, and they talk about medical gatekeeping and all kinds of stuff. And
okay, but this is kind of anecdotal. Like, how often does this happen? I don't think we've gone so far beyond the original topic.
If someone's an adult, don't we agree that they should be able to do whatever they want?
No, but that's what the disagreement is. But
yeah, that's where
we don't have to talk about this. I don't know why you. Kind of not what we were talking about.
Let's move on.
Before we leave the Libs of TikTok, can I ask just one more question? Because what was important to me is when talking about Libs of TikTok, I just wanted it to be like ironed out, I guess, if you have viewers that are on the right wing, that again, this is not something that I'm coming at a position from where I think it's wrong for people to repost other people's shit and laugh at it. Have at it, you know. I'm totally on board with that. What is wrong to me is taking specific people, say a teacher, and then posting, hey, this person is a groomer or a pedophile, and then the results of that are going to be that person is going to be ostracized or fired from their job, and even going further in certain cases as posting their school district and then having that associate with politicians and stuff. That is the big problem of what I think Libs and TikTok was doing. Are you on that? Are you on board with that, or is that something you just okay?
I understand exactly what you're saying. So the reason we got off on that sidetrack was there's a very important question you said, which is, how is this a political ideology? And this is why we got on that sidetrack, is because if we're talking about, like, if I'm saying non-binary pronouns reinforce gender stereotypes, then you're making a question about how people think gendered people should act, or whether gender should have prescriptive norms or something associated with it. So that is a political question. And that's what I'm talking about when people call this stuff. That's where the political aspect of the groomer comes from. Because there are political ideas nested within this.
So why wouldn't you use the word?
People can promote them, but you have to acknowledge them.
So why wouldn't you use the word indoctrination? Not a word whose dictionary definition. The first exactly, and that's the entire purpose. It's to continue to vilify this group of people and associate them with pedophilia. And because the first thing you will find when you look at it in like dictionary definitions is going to be someone who's trying to have a sexual relationship with kids by curating that.
I don't disagree with any of this.
I mean, this is a repeat of the gay panic, right? And no one at this point in history would argue that those people weren't homophobic and anti-gay. I mean, this is, I think, fast forward a couple of years, maybe a decade, and people are going to look back at what was going on here with the same lens as as gay panic. I mean, I
don't think it's quite the same.
Yeah.
Because the gay, I don't know, I wasn't alive then, but I'm assuming the gay panic was people that were using this language literally believed that, oh, gay people are going to go around gaying children to have sex with them or something.
Yeah, like that was definitely a major part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. With this, I'm sure there's some people that believe that when they see the OK groomer stuff, but I think the majority of them, or I think a good chunk of them, have the kind of smug Pepe attitude about using the term groomer. They understand.
Oh, so you're saying it's just for the memes?
I would flip that. I would say the vast majority of people are not in like this little bubble that the four of us are in, where we know the online political spheres and who's talking about what on what image board or on what social media platform. I think the vast majority of people, Libs of TikTok, for example, has got like 1 million Twitter followers. I think the vast majority of her followers see her use the word groomer and they go, oh, that person is trying to groom those children so then they can take advantage of them sexually.
I'm not sure. Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. It would be nice if, I don't know if they have. I know that, whenever James Lindsay, he has like this graphic that's like his definition of groomer that he uses.
Oh, he made up a new one. Yeah, no, I saw that post. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's been using that for a while. I don't know if Libs of TikTok has ever posted that. I mean, obviously, I think that'd be better if they did, but I'm not sure on what the exact breakdown is between the groomer.
But in my personal opinion, it doesn't matter if it is just a Pepe wink kek for the memes, the epic big chungus kind of shit. The effect will be the same if a broad majority of people who see those videos suddenly start associating it with pedophilia, or start thinking that, oh, okay, well, this person is talking about gender ideology, they must be talking about being a pedo, that kind of stuff.
Right, and I agree with you in principle, but I guess I just don't care, because then they say, well, this is what you've been doing to us for the last 5-6 years about racism.
When you say they, who you're talking about?
Like the people on the right, or people that are not.
We're not right wingers.
We'll say.
I know that, but I'm just saying when you say they,
with the racist hammer.
But we're talking about a very marginalized community. They have on one end.
Well, that not is irrelevant, really.
Okay, fine, that's irrelevant. But if there's a marginalized community, and we're talking about the LGBTQ plus, they specifically, you think, have been pushing so far against the right to such a wait, let me finish this, such a degree against the right for so long that it's justified to falsely label them as pedophiles in the opposite direction.
I'm not saying it's justified. It's not justified.
Oh, you're saying that that's the reason.
I don't care. I'm saying,
Lance, are you saying that it's? Are you saying it, Lance? Are you saying it's? Lance, are you saying it's justified to be dishonest if if the person isn't marginalized? Because that's kind of what's going on.
Oh, absolutely
in the other
not.
direction.
No, I don't think it's justified in either direction. I just think this is an incredible imbalance of power. I think we're talking about people who are oppressed, broadly speaking, by society in one end. So people are oppressed in this end, and then saying like, well, this is just a justifiable backlash because at the end of the day, you who have been oppressed for so long are starting to like call us names too. So it's fine to falsely label you as pedophiles.
Hey, I'm not calling. Hey,
no, I'm not saying you two. I'm saying the right. We're talking about
yeah. Fine. I understand. I think you kind of have it backwards though, because I think you can make the argument that when you say LGBT people have been historically marginalized, that's definitely true. That's definitely not really true publicly in the last 5 to 10 years.
In what way?
It seems like what do you mean? Like if someone comes out as LGBT, everyone in the school is clapping. It's like a lot of children are doing this in friend groups.
This is 100% the feels, fellas. I got to tell you, broadly speaking, LGBTQ, especially if you're trans people, are overwhelmingly overrepresented in unemployment, in homelessness, in being kicked out of their families. They have the highest rates of suicide amongst children. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about. We're saying we're talking about people who have but we're talking about people who are broadly speaking overwhelmingly marginalized.
Are you not saying?
Wait, hold on a second.
Okay,
go ahead.
When you have a medical condition, which leads to like dysphoric feelings, obviously that's going to have a lot of baggage with it when it comes to having problems in life. I would never deny that. Obviously, they're going to be overrepresented and having lots of social problems. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they're not marginalized by society. I don't think LGBT people on average are marginalized by society. I think people that are accused of being racist are far more marginalized by society currently than anyone who identifies as LGBT.
Well, probably. Well, it probably depends where you live. Some kid in Alabama is not going to come out and flaunt coming out in high school.
Well, it depends where you live in Alabama. Let's not paint all of Alabama.
Yes, sure. In a red state, in a red area, sure, of course. But are you saying that even being gay and or lesbian or bisexual is that also what you're talking about when you bring up like like what was the term you used? I'm sorry.
Not marginalized?
No. When you talk about their mental health or something, you used I don't want to put.
No, it's talking about people with gender dysphoria. He said trans people are overrepresented in all these.
No, he was talking about LGBTQ people in general.
Yeah, but specifically trans people. I did say trans people, and I'm trying to wrap my head around the concept that people you're saying are more openly vilified for being conservative or right wing than trans people are in terms of their everyday experience. I think that's
maybe
honestly.
I said accused of being racist, but I don't know.
Sure, but if people are accused of being racist, that's very, very different. Okay, sorry, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but being accused of being racist, okay, sure, that might feel shitty, but we're talking about people who genuinely get kicked out of their homes, have a lot of trouble finding employment, are homeless, are overrepresented in a variety of things, have very high rates of suicide. But overwhelmingly, that is more marginalization, broadly speaking, by society than being called a racist if you go to Starbucks or something like that.
Maybe we have different definitions of marginalized by society, because when I hear that, what I think it means is that society is saying fuck you on the basis of a belief or some biological identifier. That's unfair. Okay, that's what I think of when I hear marginalized. I don't know if you're using the word the same way.
Well, marginalized by society, I would assume to mean oppressed, as in the structures of the society that we've created are oppressing these people. So you're using a much
broader systemic way.
Well, even if I was to use your definition, I would still say that broadly speaking, LGBTQ plus people fall under that worse, that they're more socially stigmatized.
So this is why I disagree, because
I think okay, go ahead.
Well, I'll just say people get fired all the time for being accused of racism. I mean, this is sort of how cancel culture started, was you'd say, oh, someone says something that smacks of racism, get rid of them. Where I don't see people getting fired for like, oh, I'm coming out as gay, oh, fired. Or any of that. It seems like it's more the opposite. People are applauded for coming out as gay and trans. And when the examples that you're bringing forward about, trans individuals are more represented or disproportionately represented in terms of, being, kicked out of their homes or being on government welfare, being low income, all this other stuff. You're assuming that that's based off of society punishing them for being trans. And I think it's more likely that, well, no, if you have gender dysphoria, that causes all sorts of mental problems in your life. And it would make sense that people with those mental issues would be overrepresented in all the categories you just said.
Yeah. So study after study has shown that the like high rates of suicidal ideation or stuff like that trans people experience, that is a direct result of social stigma. So that's not something inherent.
I don't think that's true.
Overwhelmingly, this is like across the board.
They've shown. No, wait a minute. Because I've seen. I don't know which study you're quoting exactly. I've seen studies that say that yes, if they don't have social stigma, obviously suicide ideations and rates and things of that nature will go down, which makes sense. But they're still very high, regardless of social acceptance.
Right, because we haven't, broadly speaking, achieved social acceptance. Like when you talk about how in society, and we talk about how, like, you know, you used to think the right or racists are the ones who are vilified in jobs, or broadly speaking, right? I think you might be looking at this through, like, in mainstream media, say like Disney and some other stuff like that, or like broadly speaking in media, or the Libs or the Democrats like that, they seem to be more accepting now than ever before for being trans. That doesn't mean, broadly speaking, statistically, trans people are broadly accepted in society, Western society specifically, like North America and Canada and the US. They still have overwhelming obstacles that they constantly have to overcome. So I don't think
that's fair. That's definitely true. I'd have to see like polling data or something on, you know, whether the average person, you know, throws rocks at trans people or doesn't accept them or something. But well, I guess I'm confused.
But it doesn't even have to be something overt like that.
I know.
Simple. Yeah, I know. I just want to make sure, though. You know, even if you know, I want to make sure your audience and my audience.
Matt is cringing like crazy. At
I know he is, but I just want to. I want to let Matt speak because we've been talking a lot. He hasn't spoken, but I want to just ask Lance this question, which is, do you think if there was like perfect social acceptance of trans people, I mean, do you think that they wouldn't have a higher than normal suicide rate?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's a handful.
I don't think they would.
I think the rate. I think the rate of suicidal ideation would drop dramatically. Yes, and I think that is backed by science.
Twice as much as normal.
Like 2% higher. I have no desire as like a cis dude to start throwing darts on the wall of what I think the stats would be. But like I can
where your sort of intuition.
Sure. Okay, but I don't have to look at my intuition. Yeah, like if I just I want to
be less.
I'm not. It's not a gotcha. I'm just curious to see.
I know. It's not a gotcha, but so I'd rather talk about like the science behind this. If you look at all of the modern studies that come out on this specific topic, for basically, if there is less social stigma, both present in their family, their environment, in their school, and broadly speaking, outside and external forces, yes, suicidal ideation is lowered because they do not feel vilified.
What study though? What study are you talking about? Because I was going to ask you why you believe that. Like, what is? Sure. There's a study that shows trans people are less suicidal if society accepts them. How would you even conduct that study?
Okay. Well, there have been studies that show that trans people who do transition obviously tend to have a different frame of mental state afterwards. They're generally happy to be.
But that would have nothing to do with society accepting them or not. Like, how would you conduct a study where, you know, the level of societal acceptance was a variable in your study? Yeah.
The way these studies are conducted, you're right. I don't think it's usually just questionnaires where they say, like, you know, does your family accept you and do you feel accepted by your community? So it's based entirely on people's, you know, personal perceptions.
I didn't know we'd get to I did pulling out all the studies part, but yeah, sure, I can pull them up.
Well, no, I mean, it's fine.
They're usually they're easily found.
I've read I did studies that say it's less. Yeah. I think you're attributing way more of the suicidal ideation to
based on your gut intuition, not really a study.
Oh no. I'm cis. I don't know what it's like to be trans, so I usually base this on like what I read kind of stuff, right?
Well, that's fair too.
So you're basing it on anecdotes from your from trans friends?
Oh no, not at all. I wouldn't go for anecdotes. I go for usually studies. Meta studies usually typically start with. I like looking at meta studies first, and then I like looking at the individual studies themselves within that. But like, obviously, I want to listen to individual trans people's experience because that's how you kind of get a better POV for this kind of stuff, right?
Well, did you see the study where they asked detransitioners why they detransitioned, and societal acceptance was like, I mean, it was very low. It was like in the single digits. Like, not being accepted by society wasn't really a huge factor in them detransitioning. So that would lead me to believe that it was societal acceptance wasn't a huge factor. But that's
okay,
the only study.
So speaking of that specifically, okay, so what?
We're talking
okay,
about we're talking about an even smaller percentage.
Well, it was like 300. It was a study of I think 350 people. So
it's okay. I have a lot of studies on that.
Of these studies
no. What I'm saying though is
that
that detransitioners are such a small percentage in general that we're already talking about a minute group inside of a minute group. Like
right, but a lot of the trans studies don't have as many as 300 participants. So, I mean,
sure. So here, okay. So can I drop some studies?
Every detransitioner for this.
Okay. All right. So Adam, you're asking for the studies. Let me drop some studies. Okay. So some quick ones.
You can
okay.
link them in the chat.
I'll link them in the chat. But you're talking about that there's a very small percentage of people in these studies. In the U.S., a survey of 28,000 people found 8% of respondents reported some kind of detransition, and of those, the reason for detransition was overwhelmingly social stigma. In the UK, of 3,398 attendees at the Gender Identity Clinic, found 0.47% experienced some transition-related regret. In Sweden,
I've read that study.
Yeah, the Sweden one is smaller, but the Sweden one is longer. A 50-year longitudinal study of a cohort of 767 transgender people found that only 2% of participants expressed regret, and of those, overwhelmingly, the reason was because of social stigma in each one.
Okay. I'm glad you got the study up. First things first, Matt, you said you could only stay around for an hour. We're at about an hour, and I have a couple questions I want to ask.
I could keep going.
Okay.
I'm going to. Yeah. I'm having fun. This is getting spicy.
Okay. Sure. Sitch, do you want to jump? Like Matt, do you want to say something? Matt,
I feel like we've been talking over Matt.
I think I forgot the point I wanted to mention, because that point was like 15 minutes ago.
That's okay.
Let's keep going. Let's move on to something else. I mean,
I found one video here from 3 years ago with 37,000 views that says you don't need dysphoria to be trans. Okay, there's another video here why you don't need gender dysphoria to be transgender, male to female transition. So I mean, I just feel like this is a pretty common debate that's going on. I'm actually mystified that you've never heard of this. Do you need, here's another one, 14K views from 4 years ago. Do you need dysphoria to be trans? This is like, okay.
I mean, we don't know who's viewing those, to be honest. I mean,
14,000 people are. I mean,
that was
a lot of people.
But these aren't studies. This is just views on videos. Here.
Cat Black, 300,000 views from 2 years ago. You need dysphoria to be trans? ? So I mean,
but these are the views of videos of content producers. This isn't data or science.
I understand. I'm just saying it's not such a. It's not like I think it's not a far out idea. As
no, and people can ask these questions. Obviously, people are debating. We're talking about it right now. I just don't think that's we should use this as a compass to affect policy. Policy should probably be based on both a combination of.
First of all, I was asking your opinion when I said.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Do you think someone should be able to transition without gender dysphoria? Just say, that it's something that they desire to do. It's like,
but that's like asking, should someone be able to have plastic surgery to do something that I don't personally agree with? Like if someone wants to like make their tongue tiger, right, or make their tongue serrated or something like that, like sure, it's weird to me, but like if you want to go do that, God bless.
Okay, so we have the same position. Yeah, God bless.
Yeah,
there you go.
Freedom.
I'm against
freedom. I'm for maximizing freedom.
Get Carl back in here. I'm against freedom.
So do you want to?
By the way, Adam, you said you want to talk about far right radicalization too, right? That was another topic.
Well, I was more interested in talking about David Pakman did this interview with Trigonometry, where it was supposed to be like a good faith interview, and he went into it expecting it to be good faith. It appeared to be good faith, and then David Pakman went on his channel and started slandering them as right wingers and characterizing them as like Nazi fascists and stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking.
Who I'm David Pakman. Now you guys are going to tell me you've never heard of David Pakman.
No, I've been on Pakman's show. Yeah. I've had him on my show too. I know Pakman.
Who is he talking about?
The show is called Trigger. I think it's Trigonometry, and these guys pitch themselves as kind of enlightened centrist types. And I mean, I got to admit, one of the reasons I'm bringing this up is because You said you were going to come in here and it was going to be good faith, Lance. I don't want to a couple days from now see you on
I have
your
been so good faith. Come on.
Trying
This
to
I have been
about
patient
how
on things I'm
we-
very, very passionate about. I've been nothing but friendly. Come on, Adam. You have to be.
Lance has been nothing. No, listen. Lance, you've been nothing but a saint. You and
Right.
Adam is worried. He's afraid. He's worried. He's terrified that in the future something will arise.
These conversations are very, very difficult to have, and I respect the fact that David Pakman went on the show with the trigonometry guys to try to have one of those conversations, but I don't respect the fact that he completely mischaracterized their positions afterwards and tried to paint them as something they're not. I view, and you do this a lot, Lance, you're completely guilty of this.
Okay.
You misidentify people politically in a way that you would completely be offended by if people misgendered a person who was
as in like label them further right than you think they are.
Right wingers, and I don't approve of this when right wingers do this. Right wingers who will misgender people like Blair White. They'll call
like Ben Shapiro. Yeah, Ben Shapiro does it.
To be offensive and to say, this is my worldview. I don't, I like to stick to reality, and I call it like I see it. So I'm going to misgender this person. So, and you disrespect that. I assume you disagree with the people that do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course.
Okay. But at the same time, you will go on your channel and we call ourselves centrists. Like, we are not right wingers. We've never called ourselves conservatives. I've never been, I would feel like a fraud calling myself a conservative, and everybody in the chat does this. But then you will go back to your channel and you will say, oh, I did a debate with these right wingers.
Is that the fear?
Misgendering Blair White.
Okay, well, first off, you're not born right wing. That would be my first point in there, and the second part would be that, like, I started by saying,
I mean, you could ascribe political positions to someone to define them as right wing.
That is exactly what the right wingers say when they misgender people.
But we're talking about
two separate things,
beliefs.
though.
They say look, I look at them as they are in reality. I understand that they have this behavior that they want to think of themselves as centrists.
Right.
But I see their behavior, and their behavior is completely different than that. So therefore, I want to identify them as I see them. How is it different? It's exactly the same thing.
Okay, so I would say this is basically a really good example of a false equivalency. I think if you want to say it's a bad thing for you to falsely label someone politically who might be like a libertarian as an ANCAP or something like that, that's fine, but that's very different than what someone who is trans experiences in their everyday life as being misgendered.
Right, like
it contributes towards, like you described, a medical condition, and it's also part of the vilification of them that they experience all the time.
No, wait, so
if you guys called me like
when you use right wing, you're not vilifying them, because it feels a little like you are.
Right, but I'm saying these things aren't equivalent. As in, like, is it going to actually affect your daily life where you actually might experience suicidal ideation based on the fact that you were called a right winger when you want to be called a libertarian? I'm not going to call you that, by the way.
The trigonometry guys.
But
they made a video. They were totally triggered by it. They were like, "What the hell?"
Sure, but being upset about that is different than I live every day struggling with the fact that people will not recognize me as a woman. That's very different.
So of course it's different. I just. Like, that's kind of irrelevant to the.
But that's why I'm saying it's a false equivalency.
Okay.
It's basically like, something that is far more serious versus something that I could agree with you shouldn't do. And if you're trying to accuse me of that, separate those two things. Then be like, Lance, you falsely accused us of being right wingers on this date, and then I would be like, okay, well then that was my mistake. That's different than I want to lump these two things together and talk about gender dysphoria and stuff like that.
Here's my problem, and Matt, you've been very patient, Matt. I'll let you talk after this. Here's my problem with that. Because many people, and I believe when you do this, Lance, you say anybody who attacks the left, I'm going to label as right wing. So you say, look, Sitch and Adam have this behavior. They've attacked the left. Therefore, they are right wingers. But why can't a person on the left attack the left if they think the left is doing the wrong thing?
Do you want Matt to answer that, or do you want me to keep going?
You can. Obviously, there's two different things. I think we've established that. But like for me, at least, when I call someone a right winger or a conservative or whatever they are, I'm ascribing that term to what their stated beliefs are. Like when I went on Tim Pool's show and
someone's at my door.
He was a conservative. It's because that's who I believe. That's what I believe best describes him based on his political positions.
What did you call him? I didn't know what you called Tim Pool.
I said he's a conservative, and I asked him why does he keep calling himself a liberal, and his explanation was, basically because he supports universal health care. And
so you you didn't let him self-identify. It's so bizarre to me that like you're so down with self-identification on the trans issue, but you're not down with it on the political thing.
But that's who that trans person is. Like their self-identification.
Listen, if I come out and tell you this is my political position, how are you able to say that I'm lying to myself?
I mean, if you're saying that like all taxes should be abolished, and then you say you're like a socialist, you clearly are not. I mean, that's like a political position that doesn't mesh with that terminology. Like that's not what you're claiming that is. I mean,
I feel like you're riding into dangerous waters with that argument.
Trans people aren't claiming that they are like a trans woman's not like claiming she's a biological woman. She's saying that she's a trans woman. Her gender identity is that of a woman. I mean, how are you going to argue with her that that's not who she identifies with her gender, with that gender? I mean, again, if you want to call yourself a leftist, if you're actually a right winger, I'm not going to stop you from calling yourself that. I mean, how can I? But your political positions do not line up with that of someone who that label describes.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like kind of what the argument is that because
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. I can't hear you. 1 second.
Oh, am I bringing up on your end, Adam, or just?
By the way, if you didn't know, leftists attack leftists all the time. It's a circular firing squad on the left. Oh, like it's an actual meme. Okay, you've seen the lobsters before. You know what happens.
I know what happens with the lobsters. Did you fix what the problem
was? When we say leftist, we mean socialist. A lot of people sometimes mean leftist as just people broadly on the left. So
right.
I noticed you said leftist. I don't necessarily know what definition you're using.
You're right. No, what I was going to say is,
do you guys hear me? I'm sorry. Your audio.
Yeah, we can hear you
for a bit. Yeah,
I hear you fine. Yeah.
Go ahead and finish your thought, Matt.
No, I honestly I finished it. I don't know if you were talking over me because
right. No, I was gonna say that you're kind of sailing into dangerous waters with that argument because it sounds like you're saying because gender identity is more vague and harder to nail down, we accept people just self-identifying as a gender regardless of being able to clearly define it or not. Where when it comes to political identity, you say, well, you can label out something more clear, so therefore it's okay for you to basically throw the label at people, even if they don't self-identify that way.
Well, one self-ID defines who the person is based on what they see themselves as, and the other one is dependent on your political beliefs that describe that particular ideology. I mean, again, if you're a conservative,
I see
who thinks it's fun to walk around and say you're a leftist, that's fine. I mean, how can I stop you doing that? But there's a clear set of, again, not every single, it's not like you have to agree with like 10 out of 10, but there are some, obviously 10, like if you're someone who just wants to abolish taxes, or if you're someone who thinks that, I don't know, if we're going to stick with social issues, we could say, if you're someone who thinks, gay people shouldn't be allowed to marry one another. I mean, those are things that are generally conservative ideology. If you want to claim you're leftist, that's fine. I mean, my point when I was saying to Tim Pool that wasn't that like I want you to self-ID the way I want you to. No, my point is that you're lying to your audience. I mean, based on the reaction I got from some people who messaged me from his audience, there are people who did believe, based on how he self-IDs, that he was someone that his politics does not accurately define.
Well, what are you on the Tim Pool situation? I think Tim Pool is in favor of gay marriage. I mean, what is the thing that you're pointing to and saying, oh, this is a conservative belief?
Well, he told me straight up on the thing on his show that he support. Now, Tim is very hard to pin down because even his own audience calls him a fence sitter, where he'll say one thing and literally
a milquetoast fence sitter.
A milquetoast fence sitter. That's the exact term that they use themselves. And then 5 minutes later, he'll like walk it back in order to like not alienate his audience, I guess, because he tries to play that game with his audience. where he brings in everybody so they could think he's some like left
So,
leaning
but you
centrist.
yourself are
Okay,
saying that it's hard to pin down, but then you're pinning it down. You're like coming out and saying, okay,
hard to pin down based what he's saying. But if you actually get down to what he talks about and focuses on his show, like after Roe v. Wade, for example, he has spent weeks and weeks and weeks covering not how women across the country are no longer going to be able to now, regardless of what you think about abortion, if you're a conservative listening right now, you could completely think abortion could be banned. I don't agree with you, but that's not what this discussion is right now.
We're baby killers
about,
here, so
we're talking about
you're among friends.
We're talking about the idea that you can take this of Tim Pool's position. So, he takes the position that he supports Roe v. Wade. Yet for the past 2 weeks of his show, 3 weeks of his show, whenever that leak came out that signaled what the Supreme Court is planning to do, his focus hasn't been on what do we do about all those women in that time frame that Tim Pool himself claims he agrees with is fine for them to get an abortion. He's been focusing on these extreme edge cases, these like hypothetical scenarios where if a baby is crowning outside the mother, do you think that she should be allowed to get an abortion? That's disgusting. I hate you. I can't stand with you.
Wasn't he talking about a baby guillotine too? He was talking about something
like that's been his show for the past 2 weeks.
Right.
Now, if you're someone who's actually is for Roe v. Wade, and actually, even if you're someone who's pro-choice but has a belief that there should be some restrictions later on, Roe v. Wade to me would be the example. Getting struck down would be an example of, okay, which is the priority here? What's the thing you focus on? And he's clearly focused on siding with right wingers who want to demonize the pro-choice movement altogether.
Right.
I mean, again, if he's anti-choice, that's fine. That's who he is. Stop lying to your audience and pretending you support something you don't. Like, that's what bothers me about that. That's it. Like, again, I don't care what you self-ID as. If you're someone though with a platform, I think you do have you have a responsibility to your audience to not lie to them.
I mean, I agree completely.
Yeah,
but it sounds like
what
you're describing is not so much Tim being a conservative, rather he's grifting. He is someone who is moderate, who just intentionally covers things and focuses on things to appease his audience. Which,
well, I mean, that doesn't make it any better.
I might agree with you. I'm just saying you could say that instead of calling him a conservative.
Okay, so even if Tim Pool, the person, is further left than me, he's a full-on, Leninist, or he's a Marxist or some shit. I don't care. I don't care about Tim Pool, the person. Tim Pool, the YouTuber who has got millions of subscribers, is selling his audience right-wing ideology as centrism or even liberalism, and that to me is my beef with that. Period. I mean, again, if Tim Pool off air is high-fiving me and wants to take down capitalism, that's great. I don't give a shit, because Tim Pool, the person on YouTube, is much more harmful by lying to his audience about the positions that he's espousing on his own program.
Sure. I mean, and I think, I would agree with that kind of perception. I do think, well, not exactly the way you phrase it, but I agree that Tim is definitely focusing on things for what I would consider the financial gain, or for his audience and all this stuff. By just saying, I think you could just say all that without, saying you are a conservative, and you can kind of circumvent that kind of definitional conversation about self-identification.
I think that's sort of silly though, because if you're espousing right-wing politics, who cares what the reasoning? I mean, obviously it makes him look even worse if he's just grifting. If your label is correct, which
if it doesn't matter, then why
on his show I stayed away with it. Why? Well, I think it does matter, because based on
no, I'm saying you said why does it matter how he thinks, or if that's different? I'm saying, well, if it doesn't matter, then why are you doing it the way that you're doing it?
Oh no! What I said was, what does it matter if the real Tim Pool is a leftist or has left-leaning positions on things?
He's not. I didn't seem like you were saying that he's lying about his positions on stream. You're saying that what he's focusing on, he's using intentional extreme cases that he'll line up with his audience so he doesn't piss them off, essentially. Right.
Well, I mean, again, though, to me, there's, again, if his audience is taking that right-wing ideology that he's espousing to them just to make them happy, then they get to go home or after the stream say to themselves, wow, even liberal Tim Pool thinks the same way me, a hard right winger, thinks. I must be in the right position.
Yeah, right. I understand what you're saying.
And those leftists are crazy.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I mean,
right. I mean, I understand your point. That's a fair point. I'm not sure his audience buys him being some centrist liberal anymore, but maybe they do.
I knew that there was an audience that I could reach in terms of like, telling them this stuff, and they would go, well, he has a point, which is, when I went on the show. But the reaction I received via phone calls on my live stream, DMs on Twitter, emails, that audience, I expected maybe a handful, even like, maybe even one or two would have been like, well, that's good for me. I'm happy with how that turned out. It was a lot more than that. And it even shocked me based on, I think his audience buys that. Honestly, obviously there's a lot of conservatives who listen to his show and takes what he says. But there's also, out of all the right-wing shows, he is easily, or at least all the shows that espouse right-wing politics, regardless of for what reason, his show without a doubt has the most of an audience that is not self-IDing as right. They're not the majority.
Yeah, it's him. I understand. He has the largest right-wing audience for someone who does not self-identify as someone on the right.
I think it's also, it can be a useful tool.
You're saying his audience doesn't?
His audience, yes, his audience.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Okay, Steven Crowder's audience. They know who Steven Crowder is. Steven Crowder doesn't hide that he's a right winger. Right. He flaunts it. So his audience is made up of fellow right wingers, again, across the spectrum. So they could be center, right leaning center, all the way to like far right fascists or whatever. But there is that spectrum knows who he is, and they agree with his politics and know that he's a right winger. And they go there for to hear his right wing ideology. Tim Pool's audience, or at least a significant percentage, again, significant to me could mean even like 5%, 10%, way more than any other right-wing channel, goes to his channel and thinks they are getting someone who's just talking straight down the line, maybe even a little bit more liberal than the other conservative YouTubers out there. And they listen to him and they go, oh, this guy is, he's not too far right, not too far left. He's just down the middle. So his position is the sensible one, because honestly, a lot of apolitical people, or people who aren't in these political bubbles, do have this bizarre idea that centrism is, you don't get your way, leftists, you don't get your way, people on the right, we've compromised, everyone should be angry. And that's just not how the world works. Honestly, that's not how things go.
Everyone should be angry, but continue.
I don't think so. I mean,
we don't define centrism that way at all. So,
but like, I want to know how did the two? Wait, can I ask? How did the two of you define Tim Pool? Like, what do you consider him to be? Just out of curiosity.
I think Tim Pool is an alienated. What's the word, Adam? The alienated liberal. What's the word that we always use for this?
Disaffected liberal.
I think Tim Pool is. I think he was essentially a disaffected liberal. I think a lot of his audience was that.
And do you not find maybe he uses that as a tool? Especially, he might be better at speaking about these kind of issues because people are like, well, I used to be a liberal, or I used to be a Bernie Sanders supporter, I used to be on the left, right? And now I've found the truth and I've seen it on the other side, kind of thing.
Right. I don't watch his live streams at all, and I stopped watching. I used to watch his normal videos for a while. I kind of lost interest around, I don't know, 2018 or so. So it's possible that he's moved significantly to the right since then. I think he started as a disaffected liberal. I think he would, my criticism against him was that he would intentionally focus only on stories that made the left look wrong or crazy, while intentionally ignoring stories that made the right look crazy, because he knows that that's kind of what his audience wants. And I think you can levy that criticism towards him without just getting into this argument about how someone self-identifies, which I think is somewhat irrelevant. I understand your point, Matt, which is that if he's basically providing a narrative to an audience that they can also self-identify in some incorrect way, but I guess I'm assuming that those people are also basically disaffected liberals who, they do agree with a lot of left-wing policy positions. They just really don't like wokeness. And then I guess you could have an argument about, well, Tim is kind of feeding them a narrative where he's kind of exaggerating the wokeness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, that's kind of a different argument than what's being
there's
made.
also well, again, I have to do this myself every now and then, so I'm not saying that like I'm some higher enlightened or something, but we, all four of us here, just the fact that we do regular political online talk shows for hours sometimes, we are in a bubble where I think sometimes we have to step out of and realize that like the vast majority of people do not have the same understanding of labels and
I agree.
as we do. And I think that is why someone like, Tim Pool, why I focus on him more than maybe some others, because I think that does tell people something that they believe that's just not true. They watch his show and they truly believe, like, if you're working 12 hours days or some shit, and you come home and you got a few hours to catch up on the news, and your friend told you to check out this Tim Pool guy, and you see all these people watching, he gets 40,000 people at concurrent viewers at any time. You're like, oh, this must be, a show to watch. And you got those 2-3 hours to catch the news, and you do it through his show. And then you go to bed and go right and clock in for work for the next shift. That's where your political ideology and how you believe, the political sphere, identifies and looks.
Right.
And I think that's a real problem. Again, I mean, I know why he does it, but that's why I focus on that, at least. I mean, we don't have to focus on this show.
Right. I understand exactly what you're saying. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, but I feel like we're kind of looping, so we can.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, would you have a problem with Matt calling a take that Tim Pool has as right wing, even if he doesn't identify as a right winger?
That's the way to do it, right?
Well, if he has a wait a minute.
Position,
If Tim has a right wing take, I mean, there's a difference between having a right wing take and Tim focusing on, or anyone really, focusing on these extreme edge cases in order to not alienate parts of his audience, which I think you could call out. I just think it's a different thing.
But you'd be fine with that, right? So if Matt was like, okay, what you just said is distinctly a right-wing position or a far-right position.
But the
or something
chat
like that.
literally says that I have Tim Pool derangement syndrome. Okay.
Okay.
I'm well-known not lover of Tim Pool.
Beanie derangement syndrome.
I mean, he's got listen to your YouTube viewers. He's got a huge audience. Like
I know he does.
Is one of the. So I mean, I don't think it's derangement syndrome to focus on. I mean, would you get mad at your these guys for focusing on something that like CNN or MSNBC?
Well, derangement syndrome
they're saying
means that you don't see clearly that you're biased.
Yeah, they're saying that I'm biased against him. Unfairly.
I mean,
which
I would have
different.
to know exactly what it is, obviously, but I would say you probably aren't.
Well, yeah, you would. I'm sure you wouldn't.
But if he loved Tim Pool, you'd be here saying that he's completely biased.
No, I actually don't. I actually don't think it's a problem to focus on someone like that. Right. I mean, the whole idea that like Trump derangement syndrome. Like, listen, I even think like the libs, like the actual like shit libs, like your basic bitch Democrats, like they were obviously like over the top sometimes when it comes to Trump, but at the same time he was the fucking president of the United States. I mean, like I mean, it's to focus on someone like that is not completely nuts, you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I never interpreted the TDS thing to mean you focus on Trump too much. It was to mean that anything he says, people just jump to the opposite of, essentially. That's how I.
That's part of it. I do still see like, why do you still talking about him? He's not president anymore. I mean, that's sort of a lame one too. But
he's running in 2024, right?
That too, yeah. I mean, that's
okay, wait.
Right.
Do you guys think that Trump is going to run again?
I do.
I do. Yes.
Yeah. We have a $500 bet.
Yeah.
That Trump is going to run in 2024, and
who's in the affirmative for that one?
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
What else is? I think he's going to not.
I think he's going to drop out at the last second.
Yeah. Sitch thinks he's going to drop out, but
did you think that as well in 2016 when he first started running?
No, I didn't.
No. Yeah.
A lot of people thought that.
I bet money Trump was going to win the primary and then double or nothing that he would win the election, and I won both those bets.
Right.
So, yeah.
I used to watch Celebrity Apprentice. Okay. And so they don't. Most people don't know this. Trump used to do this every 4 years before 2016, where he would say, "I'm going to run for president," and then he'd be like, "Tune into the last episode of The Apprentice, and I'll tell you if I actually run for president or not." And every fucking time he bailed and he didn't run for president. And I think that's why people had that position in 2016. But in 2016, it seemed way more serious. He was doing a lot more actual moves to run for president. So
let me tell you guys, since you're both in the political space, why I believed Trump would win the nomination and then win the presidency. There's this thing called moral foundations theory that Jonathan Haidt talks about, where he pulls out the moral intuitions of liberals and conservatives. And there's one intuition that liberals, conservatives, and libertarians all have in equal measure. It's the fairness cheating foundation. And when I listened to Trump speak, he had this way of framing every single political issue in the fairness cheating foundation that I just thought, you know, this is going to speak to people who don't even really pay attention to politics in a way that is just really unstoppable. I think a lot of times liberals and people on the left, they don't really speak to people's moral intuitions, and they even offend people's moral intuitions in ways that they're not really conscious of. And I knew when Trump focused on that issue, and the data is there. So
I think you're giving a little bit too much credit to him and not enough credit to Hillary's ability to fuck it all up.
Well, no, I did say that they step on people's moral intuitions unawares, and the deplorables comment is the perfect example of that. It's like walking into a party and saying 50% of you are all fucking idiots, and you, like, who are you talking about, right?
I think maybe that helped invigorate his own already established base to actually go out and vote that day. But right. I don't think anybody woke up that day and said, I would have voted for Hillary, or not voted for Trump, but
right.
She said that. So
right.
Again, that was speaking. That was a mistake on her part.
I just want to say one thing on
his base.
You can wait, one
thing.
Okay. One thing, you can disagree with me on the fairness cheating thing, and I by no means think that Trump was playing like 10-dimensional chess, and he's like, I'm gonna frame everything in fairness cheating. I think he was doing it intuitively, just from his years as like a sales guy. So go ahead, Lance.
I was just going to say, when it comes to Trump, I think there's this problem, and I think sometimes you'll see it with libs, where they want to label, and we've been talking about this as a theme, every single right-winger as just a racist because they voted for Trump or something like that, right? I think the Trump was a symptom. He wasn't a cause. I think someone or people turning to a politician like Trump, a lot of it has to do with the fact that modern-day politicians, broadly speaking, they're not meeting the material needs of everyday voters. They're not meeting the material needs of everyday Americans. So if there's a handful of problems and you've got someone like, it doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right or where you are on the political spectrum, most people have a similar belief in that they want security for their friends, their family, all that kind of stuff, right? And if they feel that they've been left astray by these liberal elites or coastal elites or however you want to label it, all of a sudden they will look to an alternative. And the problem being is that I don't think Democrats in large part consistently offer them what they're looking for. So centrist voters or people who might not normally turn towards someone like Trump, who I completely label as a fucking terrible individual, I think they will suddenly think, well, maybe this is an alternative. Maybe I see an answer here. Maybe this is something he's going to do more than what everyday people are doing for me.
I agree with you. I think people's faith in the American dream and American ideology was shaken, maybe even destroyed for many after the 2008 housing crash. People turned to Obama for change. People were tired of kind of the neoliberal economic system. The change never really, at least perceptually, didn't materialize for a lot of people. And so, in their confusion, they turned to someone they didn't quite understand. And so Trump comes out and he's like, all these people are corrupt. I'm going to kick the table over. And that's very appealing to people who feel like everything was corrupt.
And the shitty thing about this, go ahead. Yeah.
People are still voting for change. I mean, that's why Trump was a one-term president. So,
well, I think Biden was kind of like, we changed too much, maybe. So I don't know if I'd agree with that.
I think a lot of people were scared about the Trump move towards like neo-fascism and stuff like that. I think that was a large part of it.
Well,
but
I missed I missed what you said about.
Oh, okay, well, I was gonna say, like, I think the solution to all of this is not to look towards someone like Trump who offers easy answers, someone who's going to come out and say, by the way, the problem is Muslims, or the problem is this, or the problem is that, and there should actually be a dedicated, like, you know, I don't want to pump Bernie Sanders' brakes or anything like this, but just someone who's genuinely going to reach out towards everyday people and say, I actually want to help improve your conditions. I want to do things that tangibly will help your lives, rather than a whole bunch of posturing and a whole bunch of fucking, you know, like corporate Democrats have a tendency to do, where they talk a very big game before elections, and then come election time, it's like, well, build back what, you know, shit like that. I think, and the problem is that when that isn't met and things get worse, there's inflation, high gas costs, all that kind of shit, then people continuously look towards a scapegoat. They're going to look towards someone who's going to come along like a Trump, who's going to be able to say, hey, by the way, I have the answers for you, and it's this, it's X, or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden they rise to power.
I mean, I guess
we just had a talk.
Gerard was correct.
Yeah, we just had to talk about scapegoats before you came in. So now, is this the part where you pull out the pamphlet on socialism, Lance?
Yes.
I'm curious.
No, we don't need that.
100%. Hey, it's socialism or barbarism. What do y'all want? You know, it's a much better alternative. Don't you? Come on, aren't you all about freedom? You're Americans. You're liberal Americans. Don't you care about freedom? Don't you want more freedom in your lives? I want to maximize your freedom. That's what I'm here to talk about.
We have to have this debate. We have to have this. Not now. Not now. We don't have time to do it now, but we have to have it, because socialism is not freedom. You got this completely backwards. But anyway, let's move on. I have one more topic here. I want to talk about a pretty little lady named Lauren Southern.
No.
I thought you wanted to talk about far-right radicalization. That's what the email said.
You had a debate with Lauren Southern, I believe.
I did.
Yes. And Lauren Southern asked you very nicely, you know, as a content creator, fellow content creator, to have a secondary debate, because you accused her of a lot of incendiary stuff.
Oh, I did.
As you ran out the door on this debate.
This is the gotcha, Adam, at the end of everything.
You too. Well, no,
I expected better, sir. I expected better.
Wait, Lance, this is not Lance. This is not intended
First off,
to be a gotcha.
Okay. Well, if you're looking for the timeline, here's the timeline. Yes, at the very end of that, I wanted to keep going. I was like, Lauren, I'm going to accuse you of all these things. She called me a bitch boy, which is one of my cherished moments. And then I was like, she's like, I have to go talk to my kids. And I was like, oh, okay. And then she went and proceeded to have a very long discussion with Connor. Or sorry, counterpoints. I don't want to mislabel them. At which point I said, sure, I'll do a follow-up. She wanted to have a follow-up specifically with Destiny, which, you know, they're friends now. So I didn't think that was going to be a fair and unbiased.
Because you don't like Destiny, obviously. You thought.
Well, I just didn't think that would be a fair and unbiased moderator, to say the least. At which point she was like,
"How
well,
about us? Would we be fair and unbiased at which point, moderators?"
Let me add the second part. She said, "I want to have a discussion with you in person." At which point I was like, "I don't really feel like doing that. I didn't have an interest in that." Is that a fault of mine? Is that the gotcha that I didn't?
Well,
want to do the second part?
I mean, I think you're leaving something out here.
Sure.
She wanted to have a talk with you in person because I think you lived in the same city at the time. So it wouldn't have been like you had to get on an airplane.
Oh yeah, no, it wasn't a transportation thing. I just don't have an interest in.
It would be like, meet me down at the coffee shop and we'll do this live.
I didn't have an interest in that.
Okay. So
if you think that's running from it, then I mean that's
I'm more interested in the logistics. I mean, because the conspiracy was that you
know, Lance, I did go face to face with Tim Pool. I mean, what is that?
Damn, it's a 3v1 now. 3v1. It's happening.
Matt went into the lion's
It was like
den.
a 4, 5, 6 on 1 too.
Yeah, Matt went into the beanie's den, and you won't even talk to like 5'1", however tall she is, Lauren Southern.
I don't think Lauren Southern is going to like bring some like far right organization in front of me, or I don't think she's going to show up and all of a sudden.
She's gonna come with her guns. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, I'm not worried about that. No, I was genuinely pressing for us just to have that one-on-one like on a stream, which she didn't want to do. She thought I was going to ambush her, or she thought I was going to be bad faith or duplicitous or whatever that is. If
we can set something up, will you promise? Will you swear on a stack of Bibles not to be bad faith and not to try to be like a total?
I don't know what you mean by that though. Like
No, wait,
as in
wait.
like I can't bring up things of the past, or I can't talk about that kind of stuff.
Well,
or...
you keep bringing it up and running out the door. I mean,
stop. Lance.
Okay.
If we moderate a debate between you and Lawrence Southern, you can be as bad faith as you want. I'm not going to put any restrictions. I'm not going to put any restrictions on that. Okay, you go fucking buck wild.
Okay.
Would you be interested?
Okay.
Oh, is that the ...
That is a much tougher pitch to Lawrence Southern, but okay, knock yourself out.
I feel like we could both be, well, maybe me. I feel like I could be. No, Adam is the world's best moderator. Okay.
Yes,
if you want to host it
we
is
could
one thing.
moderate
Why
the
does there need to be a moderator? That's the thing. I don't talk over other people. I'm not known on the internet for being some kind of debate bro asshole who speaks over, like, doesn't allow them to get their points across. I'm not even a debater.
This is so weird. Lance, this is like Jekyll and Hyde. Like I've seen the Mr. Hyde. Okay.
Do you consider me to be like a threat? Genuinely, is that the reason Sargon refused to debate me? Because if we're talking about lore,
I have no idea.
Adam, you reached out to me and you emailed me saying, "Hey, would you debate Sargon of Akkad on my channel?" And I said, "Fuck yes," and then nothing came from that. What's the story behind that?
I think I forgot to ask him. I never really even asked.
Is that true? I'm having trouble believing this.
We can ask
actually.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, well then fine.
I know that,
can you follow up?
Short Fat Otaku.
I can ask him. Sure.
Oh yeah,
I'll totally ask.
I would also talk to Short Fat Otaku, but like that's one of those situations where I'm like, what exactly happened there? Because that's something you just.
Lance, I reached out to you. I did. I never talked to Sargon about it, and I just never brought it up. And I don't. It's like I don't. It was not because I didn't want to host a debate with you. It slipped my mind. I never even really thought about it. So.
Oh, okay. All right, fair enough.
Yeah. So logistically, what I'm curious about, because the conspiracy was that you told the moderator that you were going to have this like speech before you gave it. Okay, is that true?
Is that a conspiracy theory? No.
It's a conspiracy.
Oh God, no.
We've had Dylan on. Dylan's been on the show.
Oh
no. You guys
forgot to ask him.
More spicy conspiracy theories. That's the big conspiracy theory.
That is the big. Listen, we're boring centrists.
Come on.
Okay, we don't.
Okay, so I'll tell you the 100% true story.
Let me ask actually this, because right now it's sort of like
it's very insular drama.
YouTube
sorry, Matt.
Creator insider stuff. Yeah,
of course.
What do you guys define as yourselves being centrists? How?
Wait. I'll answer that question. But wait.
But he wants the answer, and
that's a clear denial that no, you did not tell Dylan Burns beforehand that you were gonna
absolutely
ream Lauren.
Oh, 100%. No. And the reason I did, like, people got mad at me afterwards because they're like, Lance, why wouldn't you just brought that stuff up during the course of the debate? And personally, for me, I thought, like, doing so, I would have people saying, like, why don't you stick on the topic? Lance refuses to talk about the topics at hand. He won't talk about what they're debating. He's only talking about personal shit with Lawrence Southern. So it's like, okay, fine. I'm not going to go along that road because I thought that's how people would respond to it. And I want to bring it up at the end so that I can provoke it into us having a broader conversation about those issues. That was the reason. I did not at any time tell Dylan Burns,
okay.
Hey, by the way, I'm
okay. Yeah, no.
100%.
Let the record show.
Let the record show. I did not tell Dylan Burns I'm going to ambush
Lance
Southern.
claims to be innocent.
No, I don't claim to be innocent. I claim that Dylan Burns is innocent. I'm 100% the person who did that.
There you go. Okay.
Matt wants to know about centrism.
Yeah, what was the question?
Well, I don't want to know. I know about centrism. I want about you guys define as being centrist or your centrism.
Well, I think we might disagree on that.
I think we do, because.
Okay, so you go first, Sitch.
Well, no, you go first, Adam.
Okay, well,
you.
So centrism for me is more like independent. It's like someone who is not affiliated with a party and tries to look at each issue and come to the conclusion of what's going to be best for America and, them and their family. You kind of you're kind of forced to do this utilitarian thing on every single issue. So sometimes that will leave you siding with the conservatives. Sometimes it'll leave you siding with the progressives. So, and everyone usually gets mad when you side with one of them. But
what's something? Give me something you side with on the left and something you side with on the right in terms of policy.
I'm pro-choice, which is obviously a left-wing position, but I'm also pro-gun, which is I'm pro Second Amendment, and that's a right-wing position. So
pro gun is kind of a lefty thing too. You know that, right? There's like the Socialist Rifle Association.
I would say
it's a liberal
no, I
position.
I think he's yeah, but I think he's correct in terms of current day. But you know, what is your position though on guns? Just free for all? You could get like a rocket launcher if you want. That's covered under the Second Amendment.
Nuclear weapons. You should be able to arm your
No, for
arm
real.
your
I mean,
67
I mean,
Mustang convertible with a rocket launcher. No,
there are people on the right who think that. Honestly, that's that.
I'm not like a gun person, that I have a bunch of guns myself. Like I'm not, you know, stocked. I do have some weapons, but so I mean, I would not say that I'm the Tim Pool level of Second Amendment. So, but there's a gun debate going on right now that I don't necessarily know the particulars of. The part that bugs me is that people on the left often want to put a lot of expensive permits on getting weapons that prevent people of lower income of getting weapons, when generally they're the ones that live in neighborhoods where there's long response times and need a weapon to protect themselves at home. So,
well, I think those permits are mainly for assault weapons. I don't think I've heard anything like that for, you know, your basic handgun or something like that. But again, I don't, you know, if you're for some sort of common, you know, restrictions that, like, you know, there should be like a universal background check system that like enables people who are, you know, who shouldn't have a weapon, they shouldn't be able to get one, but then people who should be allowed to have a weapon should be able to access them. Then I don't think that's so much a right wing only position. Again, you know, if you were just like anti restrictions altogether, I would say so, but I think the vast majority of Americans, including the majority of, well, I can't say the majority, but I would say maybe half or a little bit less than half of Republicans think there should be at least some basic restrictions that enable, you know, people who aren't mentally able to, or people under the age of, like, I don't know, 18 or I don't know, 21 or whatever the current age it should be.
is that where they're headed? Are they talking about raising the age to buy like a assault rifle?
That's one of the conversations,
proposals,
because this is something that you know, the shooter in both Buffalo and
it's always young guys, yeah,
but not only young, they at least the one, I can't remember the one in Buffalo, but the one in Texas openly shared that he did not have access to guns until he turned 18, and that enabled him to go and buy those weapons. So I mean, it's clear that age restrictions actually do work. It kept them out of his hands for this entire time until he turned 18.
I'm not a gun guy, so excuse my ignorance, but does it, like, if he had a bunch of pistols with extended mags versus the, I don't know, whatever gun he had, does that really make a difference in terms of what happened?
I don't know. You know, I can't go with that hypothetical, but we do know that the police were very scared of him with his assault weapons. And that's the reason why they did not intervene and left those kids in there with him for an hour so that he had time to kill 21 people in there.
Right.
Again, I don't, if he was in there for an hour and a half with handguns, he probably could have done the same damage in an hour and a half. But I assume that he could have done a lot more with the assault weapons, and that he thought the cops were like hot on his tail or some shit like that. And that's why he hunkered down in that room where he basically stayed in there with all those kids he killed for so long. He thought they were ready. Like, he was like awaiting them to come in, and they were scared of him.
J-Mac in the chat mentions that the Vegas shooter was in his 40s, 50s, and the guy in California, in Southern California, I think he was a church shooter, was in his 60s, which I hadn't thought about that. So
yeah, right. But I mean, it is mostly young people. And when you talk about school shootings in particular, we're not seeing 40 and 60-year-old people go into a school usually.
And you're just talking about limiting the number of these, obviously.
Define assault. Yeah, well, listen, I don't think anyone here is conflating assault weapon with automatic weapon, right?
Right.
No, I was actually kind of curious.
A lot of people really, I mean, they like the terminology of
right.
guns.
Well, I mean, I know the official, I believe the official definition of assault weapon is just a gun that can have more than one attachment. I think it's kind of being used to describe, I guess, what is considered a modern a modern rifle or a modern hunting rifle. And I know that there's, supposedly, I'm not a gun guys, I don't know, but I know that I think the rifles are supposed to fire bullets faster than a pistol. And I'm not sure exactly how that breaks down in these sort of mass shooting situations. I mean, obviously, with
I just want to ask the two of you, just out of curiosity though, because I know you said you're the
though that we know more about. So just
sure. I just have one question. I have one question before you move it though. Adam, I want to ask one thing. Let me ask just one quick thing. Can I just ask Adam? I'm just curious because you said you're a Second Amendment guy. You're a gun guy. I just want to know: would you be okay with the idea of a firearms license program, so that in order to own or buy guns, you need to take a gun safety course or a gun training course or something like that?
Okay, wait a minute,
Lance. This is exactly Lance. This is exactly what I brought up.
Okay, because I guess people in the chat think they know what assault weapon means and don't. Okay. The definition of assault weapon comes from the assault weapons ban, and that was the official definition. So any other definition you're operating under is not a legal definition, and I don't know what you're talking about.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So they wanted to say, but listen, Lance, this is exactly what I brought up. Okay.
Right.
And I can't remember what the study was, but I had read some study that was talking about these expensive gun classes that you have to take and all these hoops that you have to jump through. Okay. If you're living in the hood and you're trying to keep your family safe because there's gangsters running around shooting up the neighborhood and the police don't respond for an hour and a half, you need a gun, but you don't have a lot of money because you're working at Walmart. So you don't have the money to take these expensive classes and do these expensive permits. So you're just basically making a situation where rich people can still afford to get their firearms, and there's still as many guns out there, but the people who really need
what about a tax
protection?
Right. So what about a taxpayer subsidized program? Doesn't cost anything to you. It's paid out by, just like any other social program, and it requires you.
So you want me? If we can tax Canada for this program, and you're paying the tax.
Well, I was going to say, because as the only Canadian, I think on this panel, that is a program that we have here, right? Canada has you need a firearms license to be able to purchase a firearm. You got to take a gun safety course.
Do you think the guy who wants to protect his family and the police response times are an hour and a half, do you think he should be able to own a firearm?
I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not against people's private ownership of guns. I'm for
allowing people to own them. Where police
I have. I did. I lived in Flatbush in New York. I didn't actually feel unsafe, unlike a lot of what the stereotypes are for those kind of areas. And you can point whatever thing you want at that. But I do want to say that, I don't think, even if you have a situation which you want people to have firearms, then the proposition should be that they have a government subsidized program where they can get a gun license and a firearm, and it costs nothing. But then it's the same situation, right? They will have access. The people who need them can get them. The people who want them for protection can get them. But it also teaches them good gun safety. And on top of that, you can have sufficient background checks for people who have a variety of different reasons not to be able to access a gun.
Even aside from the fact that there are shootings, I mean, there's a large portion. I mean, I could get statistics if you want actual data, but there's a large number, a significant number of kids who find their parents' guns and kill themselves playing around with the gun. I mean, there should be some sort of basic training that comes along with owning a firearm.
Yeah, no, I think, obviously. There are people who live in bad neighborhoods that their kids get killed by gangsters shooting through the wall and hitting their kids. So it's like,
but aren't the vast majority, I think almost half of gun deaths suicides? That is the bigger cause of gun shooting fatalities than it is people people being shot through the window.
We're here debating a topic that I've read next to nothing on.
You were the one who brought it up. This was your topic.
Why are you trying to convince us on guns? He asked me, can we have another? What's another?
Let me ask it because I think we've established that you are for some restrictions of some sort. Which again, there are a lot of people on the left who aren't for a complete ban of people owning weapons. They just think there should be some sort of restrictions to keep to make sure the people who do have access are on the up and up.
First of all, I'm not anti-regulation. I think there should the economy should be regulated. So
again, what is this right wing? Give me a right wing position of yours.
Listen, okay, so now Matt, I've got myself in a position here where Matt Binder is going to go back to his audience and accuse me of being
a lefty,
a fake right winger.
No, I'm actually interested. No, because I think I know what it is. But I want you to get to.
Well, no, because your definition, Adam, of being a centrist, it doesn't say you have left or right wing positions. You're saying you don't look at things through the tribal lens, and you evaluate
exactly.
And he's
each
enlightened at
issue
all times.
individually.
Exactly. So what are some right wing positions that maybe I buy into? If it's so, I mean, if this conversation can't move forward without me copying to a right wing,
I wonder if it's,
no, I'm just trying to understand what your centrism is. That's all. I'm not trying to like do like a gotcha or anything, but like you said that like you have positions you agree with the left on, positions you agree with the right on.
I am pro marriage.
He's Adam is anti CRT. He's anti-gender ideology. He's pro marriage. He's pro nuclear family. He's pro a lot of the things that have now been considered right. And I guess you can make the argument.
I don't know what that means
maybe
though,
the left
to say you're
has
pro
shifted
marriage
on that, but
see, that's a weird, like what I don't get pro nuclear. I don't understand. Like what is that position? Like I mean I don't know.
That was part. That was part of BLM's was anti the nuclear family in their stated website.
I don't know BLM the organization as I don't know all their for me Black Lives.
Oh no, we can't.
We lost
you for a second, man.
Yeah, we lost you, Matt.
Black people.
Just we hear you now. Repeat what you said, Matt.
I was saying for me BLM was just the broader movement of police brutality and injustice against Black people. An organization to me, especially one that I myself have issues with based on legit reporting I've read. I don't agree with
about buying mansions. Yes.
Right.
Just
but I mean, what is pro? What is pro? I mean, I got 2 kids. We're family of 4 living under one house. To me, I consider myself on the left. I'm not a right winger because I got a family.
No, it seems like when we talk to,
I like hearing that. Will you talk to Vosh about this?
It seems like when we talk to a lot of right wingers, they have this idea that there should be a societal pressure that pushes people towards getting married and having children and sort of establishing this sort of, the nuclear family setup, which the left seems to be more wishy-washy on whether that should exist via pressure or not.
I have a problem with both. I mean, I've had on the majority port, when I'm on the majority port, we've had callers, call in saying how they don't want to have kids because of the climate scenario or whatever, and I'm against that as well. I think both scenarios are pretty stupid, honestly.
Look, you're a right winger. You're a centrist. Look at this.
because I think in this sense, adults should do what they want. If you're an adult who wants to have kids, and your partner wants to have kids, then you should fucking go out and have kids. If you're an adult who's with a partner, or you're single and you never want to have kids, then you should never have kids. This is something that's should be up to an individual. If you're forcing couples to have kids, what you're going to end up with are couples who treat those kids like shit. And apparently, if you're a right winger, you're supposed to love kids of all lives matter, right? It doesn't sound like a kid's going to grow up in a healthy family. It doesn't want them. And in the same scenario, if you're if you're a leftist who wants to have kids, if you're it doesn't matter if you're LGBTQ, want to adopt, I don't care. If you want to have kids and you're going to bring them up and take care of them and love them, then you should fucking have kids. Who cares about what other people think?
Sure.
I'm ready to start singing the Star Spangled Banner. Are you American, Matt?
I'm hell yeah.
Okay, good. That's what I want to hear. See, that's another thing.
Dirty Canadian.
That's another thing. That's.
I apologize. I apologize. All right.
Thank you, as you should.
Yeah, I apologize for my Canadianness.
So, are you soy?
Yeah, I'm soy. I'm soy. Ubu. Yeah.
Well, just even any level of hell yeah, America, sometimes on the left seems like a naughty thing to do.
That's true. Well, let me ask you a question, Matt. If someone basically feels that the left has gone on, because I feel like this is where a lot of the Tim Pool disaffected liberals kind of feel like they're coming from, is that they're like, well, I don't know if I could associate with like a classically Republican, like 90s Republican political position, but they feel like, well, I'm anti-CRT, I'm anti, gender ideology,
that to me is like shooting yourself in the foot to spite your face or some shit.
Well, no, I'm not saying that they become Republican. I'm saying that then they say, well, I'm not. I feel like I'm nothing. I feel like I'm in the middle.
Can I ask what you mean by anti-CRT too?
I think I just want to put this all into one basket. Actually, I don't think it even matters. Honestly, I think the whole idea that someone is for leftist policy. They want universal health care, though they say they do. They want, affordable or free public college. Again, I know that could go either way, depending on where you are in the spectrum. That's not, I know there are even liberals who don't think that should happen, but, shit lib's gonna shit lib. But like, if you actually are for all these like things that are going to be beneficial for everybody, for like the working man and working woman, but like woke ideology, the fact that like you need to just like realize that people of color have certain things in this country a little bit harder than you, or that you need to if you want to respect treat a trans person with respect, you just need to identify their gender based on how they identify. Then I mean, like, what are you doing to yourself? Like, that's to me the lamest of lame. Like, healthcare for all, or having to use they them shouldn't be that fucking difficult, honestly. I mean, it really shouldn't. So, I mean, you should really look within if you claim to be someone who's for these policy positions, and think like, can I live without affordable healthcare? Or do I prefer to die in debt because I can't afford healthcare? Even if I like have healthcare, but my insurance decides not to cover something,
right?
Because I just don't want to respect the trans person, or I think the Democrats or like the democratic socialists respect trans people a little bit too much, or like the whole like idea that like, oh, how dare you think that like there's such a thing as white privilege, so I'm gonna like not vote for policy positions that are without a doubt going to make my life better. Like, it's the most lamest sort of excuse I can possibly think of. Like, just at least like just say like that. I mean,
you calling that a lame excuse, I think really belittles your political people who might vote for you in a way that pushes them away from voting for you.
I mean, it's pretty. I mean, I don't know how you even get through to those people, because it seems pretty simple to me that like,
you don't offend their sensibilities. You don't call.
But I mean,
you're basically calling them stupid.
I think it's. No, I'm not calling them stupid. I'm saying that they're probably not. No, no, I'm really not, because I don't think it comes from a place of stupidity. I think they are quite. They're quite clear in their beliefs. Honestly, they're just not being truthful to themselves. I mean,
so they're lying to themselves. See, Matt, this is like.
Maybe okay. Wait, no, I think I have a better way of framing this too, because I think one of the so one of the things, if you hear like, you'll get these pamphlets. I'm seeing them all over the U.S. They're coming into Home Depot and stuff, and they talk about concepts like what you just said.
What are you doing in our country?
CRT, for example, right? Like, the two of you say you have issues with it, or I'm not going to explore that too in depth. But I think the messaging, if you tell people something like white privilege, for example, hey, you all need to recognize that you have white privilege, and because of that, you have advantages that, like, you might not realize that you have over other people, and all this kind of stuff. I think a much better way to have explained or tried to convey this is that, guess what? If you're poor and white, shit is going to be hard as fuck. You are going to have a hard life. And guess what? If you're poor and black on top of that, then that's going to be even harder, possibly for a variety of reasons, right? So instead of thinking that like you might have some kind of magical power because you're born white, and people don't really feel that way because they have shitty lives, you don't really win in the hearts and minds of people if you're trying to convey it that way. If you try to explain to them, hey, by the way, you can be poor, white, and have a really hard life, and if you are trans, poor, and black on top of that, it'll be an even harder life. Everyone fucking struggles. We're all struggling under the current system. That's, in my opinion, a better way to explain that.
The answer is socialism, right?
Well, hell yeah.
I think you guys heard me earlier. I don't even think we need to jump that far. Like, I'm just asking for some basic things like, that.
No, you don't need socialism here. We're just
because I hate these, like, I hate these sort of hypothetical, and I said this on other shows too, I don't like these hypothetical or philosophical sort of debates where we talk about like political theory and shit like that, and like where we would be if we lived in our utopia. If you're a libertarian and you live in like, I don't know, a fucking like Ron Paul paradise, or if you're a socialist, you live in like, it doesn't, I don't.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. You're a pragmatist. I like that.
Yes. I am. I mean, I am a socialist. I think those are the policies that, but when it comes down to it, I'm not going to like start telling people that we're going to jump right to it, because we just literally cannot. It's not doable in the foreseeable future. I just think that we should be able to get on board some of the most very basic things that the rest of the industrialized world has that we just don't. I mean, it just seems pretty simple to me. But you know, we focus in general on these sort of like small bore scenarios, and like that's why I sort of think like it's so like the fact that we spent so long talking about trans rights, like, you know, trans rights to me are human rights. So like the idea that we'd even bother like spending so much time on it, like you have a different position, I'm not gonna agree with you. I think it's like you know, it's obviously you think I'm the wrong position, I think I think you're the wrong position, but I mean like the idea that like that would be something that you would vote would like sway your vote in a way that would, you know, hurt you in terms of not voting for someone who also believes in trans rights because you don't like that they're like too woke or something. I think that's like such a weird
Matt,
thing. Like
Matt,
wait, hold on.
Go ahead. Yes.
Okay. There's a book. I'm trying to remember. Maybe you remember what's called Adams, like Stranger in a Strange Land or
Robert Heinlein.
No,
why are you bringing that up?
It was some woman who was very much on the left, went to, I think she's a sociologist. She went to like Alabama or Mississippi or something, or West Virginia. And it's like a very poor community. And she was trying to understand why these people would basically vote
against their own interests
and vote Republican.
Right.
And she said there's like this deep sense of being forgotten, left behind, or basically like she said that they had a sense of like people are standing in line to get what's theirs. And then the Democrats, you know, come in and they cut them in line with, you know, minorities or trans people or whatever. And, you know, you can obviously not think that that's happening, but I think Lance is correct in that there is this sense, you know, in the way that a lot of this social issues are broached, that there is this kind of attack on a lot of people's identities or a lot of people's worth, which is kind of interesting considering that's what a lot of the left is kind of focusing on. And I think you're kind of in like your own, like the liberal bubble, not the liberal, I guess the leftist bubble, Matt, because you're fixated primarily on economic issues, which I understand people being fixated on, but lots of people are fixated on a lot of social and cultural issues. And that's what drives them. And I think until you understand that what drives them, then you're not going to be able to get the policy you want passed.
Well, I can see a lot.
I completely agree that. No, I completely agree that people, for the most part, because it's, you know, I think it's easier for them to get a hold on because it's something they, you know, they literally face. You know, they see these things every day in their life. These social issues, they're, you know, these sort of cultural issues. Whereas it's not so in your face. The economic issues. What I would like to get through to as people is that, you know, the economic issues are the ones that affect you and those people who I guess you would see as those affected most by those cultural and social issues. And that's something like universal health care. Unless it's easiest just to stick with that, because I think that's, you know, that's probably that's an issue that I use to basically guide my primary vote, honestly, in Democratic primaries for decades. But you know,
Matt, you would not sacrifice your moral principles though on economic issues, right? You'd vote your moral interests first. Like you'd vote your principles first.
They can sometimes be intertwined as well.
But if you can, but to me, these are all intersectional in the way that, you know, those issues that affect people of color, a lot of those issues, those social issues, would be solved by the economic. Universal health care, for example, would be a great boon to not only white people but all people.
Let's try to give a concrete example. Like, what if, I don't know, say there's a party that looked like it was going to win, and they're running on universal health care, but also running on like not affirming non-binary gender identities or something, you know, something to that effect.
Then I mean, if your moral guide doesn't put like the health of you and the people you love and their ability to not die in crippling debt first, then I mean, we just don't have the same morals.
What
about this for Adam and Sitch? I was curious because like if you look at countries,
Whoa,
say,
Lance.
What?
Sitch and Adam.
Oh, sorry. Sitch and Adam.
He got it right.
Oh, okay. Never mind. My deepest apologies. If you look at countries in Scandinavia, for example, that provide huge... Yeah. I'm going to do the Bernie Sanders thing here. A huge welfare system, right? There's an unbelievable support system, both in the medical system, dental, healthcare, on top of which you not only don't have to pay for higher education to become a doctor if you want to do that. They actually pay you. They give you a stipend to be able to go to higher education learning, and all of that is paid through taxation. In that scenario, you have these countries that have incredibly high outcomes of happiness when you rank that in terms of, like, you know, the countries that have the most satisfaction and stuff like that. Isn't that like an example of something you should try and emulate and take, like, what works, what is good about the system? Why can't we take that and try to implement it in the US or Canada and that?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Is that unreasonable?
I don't think it is. I'm in favor of, you know, public option. Go for it.
Yeah.
But would you vote for a candidate who wants to give you universal health care, but also thinks like trans people should be seen as, you know, their gender identity or whatever? I mean, you know, that's
an easy one. Like, you're not even making it difficult.
I mean, for you, right?
Well, I'll give you a hard one. Okay. Would I be in favor of a politician who runs on a public option, which I'm in favor of more than universal healthcare, though I guess what the difference is kind of quibbling. But they're also a huge CRT advocate. I don't know if I could vote for them.
Yeah,
I don't know if I could vote
tough.
For them.
That is tough.
How does CRT affect you in your everyday life?
Because CRT is trying to deconstruct liberalism and replace it with like weirdo race Marxism.
Look at
that's
how does that affect you walking down the street? How does CRT affect you?
Lance,
if we don't live in a liberal society,
well, no,
what do you mean, how does that
I'm confused because we're talking about a higher level education like program that's taught in law school. I don't see how that relates.
Let's put it this way.
Lance is seized on the conspiracy theory here.
Let's put it this way. You wake up tomorrow, God forbid, something horrible happens.
Kimberly Crenshaw becomes president.
Oh my God, Sitch, why?
I know, terrible.
I was going with another direction. You wake up and you're extremely sick and ill. You go to the doctor.
Right.
You're diagnosed with something your insurance isn't going to cover.
Right.
You voted for the guy who was anti-CRT and anti-universal health care. How does that help you? Now give me a scenario. Give me a scenario where that anti-CRT guy who's also anti-universal health care helps you.
No, I'll give you the inverse. The inverse would be, I wake up sick in the CRT America dystopian future, and they're like, listen, okay, we're going to calculate, you know, I know you can't afford medical insurance, so we're going to calculate based on your group identity what your position in line is.
Right.
To how
That's
you'll be
not
seen
what
by the
CRT
doctor.
is, though. What are you talking about?
Well, CRT is well, you don't know this, but
no,
CRT,
we do know it. It's taught in school. I mean, it's taught in higher education, like in like in universities.
Okay. CRT
didn't they do that with vaccine?
Wait,
I think they did. Go ahead.
Stop. CRT is explicitly stated by them the idea that the liberal and conservative civil rights movement was wrong, and that we need to move back towards the leftist civil rights movement, or the leftist position during the civil rights movement, and adhere to a more race consciousness approach, which they define as Black nationalism and Black separatism. Okay, that's what CRT is. It's the idea that white supremacy is inherently baked into our liberal democracy and liberalism itself.
I mean, how would you look? I'm not going to get into a whole CRT debate with you, but how would you argue that, for example, that the system, like, do you think the police tend to be more biased against Black people than white people?
I mean, I don't think that's borne out in the shooting statistics. No.
So white people and Black people use drugs at about the same rate, but then Black people will have a much higher rate of incarceration, of arrest, of stop and frisk, that kind of stuff. Like that's basically one of the examples. It's basically reflective of how society itself operates.
I mean, you understand that you basically, okay, you're gonna open a Pandora's box here.
Yeah.
Example.
You're gish galloping. Let's stick it.
Well, no, it's not gish galloping. I'm just saying.
It's just
you've added like another hour to the conversation if you want to delve into police.
Well, you wanted to start talking about CRT.
But that is what, CRT is basically saying, that there are inherent systems in the, the U.S. judicial system that were created in such a way that are inherently biased against people of color, specifically Black people.
That is when you're like 1 foot in the pool and the CRT people want to suck you in. That is what they're focused on. That's not what CRT is.
They want to trick them into being socialists.
No, CRT is the idea that liberalism will not produce a
honestly, if you have someone who's telling you that CRT and or anything in general is about trying to make people feel ashamed for being white, or trying to tell them that time is racist, or any of those kind of things, that is not what CRT is, and that is also absurd and ludicrous. There should be no program in place that tells people that babies are inherently racist if they're white or shit like that. That shit is weird as hell. But like, if there is a sociological analysis of society, broadly speaking, if it's like, hey, let's look at the way the structure of American society or any society works, and this is the way they look out, right?
Can you here? We the four of us should all together take a CRT class and
let's do that. That'll be fun. Why not? That'll be fun. That'll be a hell of a lark.
Secret CRT.
Look, Lance won't even go down to the coffee shop to talk to a cute girl. He's not going to take. He's not going to take some class with.
Well, her being cute is also another moral another moral issue, but let's
I hope I'm helping your donos, by the way. I hope they're coming in fast and furious.
let's no, but seriously, I mean, this isn't like a secret. Like, this is being taught in class.
This isn't a secret.
You guys
you're talking wait. How much CRT literature have you read?
How much CRT literature? Yes. I mean, I haven't read as much.
Okay,
sure, yeah. But I mean, if you're, but have you taken this course?
No, I haven't taken this course. I have read Kimberly Crenshaw's her work, the key writings that form the movement for CRT. Right. I have read that, yes, and it's right in the introduction. This is all very clearly put out right in the introduction, which I can read to you right now if you want. And I could put the picture up on screen.
We could come back to this another time, maybe, and we could get a little bit more into
it. Have a CRT conversation.
People would love to have a CRT debate, and I mean, you guys could share sources ahead of time, and it'd be a lot of fun. You guys are basically just giving us, and we know the talking points from the mainstream media. So, which they're
I
talking
think
points, not much deeper than that.
Before we get into literature, I just want to say I think there's a big thing basically where people will try to push forward this narrative that this is what I think CRT is and this is how we're going to label it, and that's when you get those things of Ted Cruz talking about the racist babies and white people being inherently racist and all that kind of stuff. But I think just if you wanted to have a conversation related to either CRT or the way that society itself operates, I don't think it's inherently either racist or disparaging to be there are definitely differences that we see within different groupings, which we know to be artificial because there's no such thing as race, right? We know that race is a social construct kind of thing.
I think it's naive to think that people are not trying to create negative stereotypes of people at all times, white people included. So, I mean, there is a negative stereotype that in the CRT community, there seems to be a stereotype that all white people are racist. That you can't.
That's not part of CRT itself, though. That might be people misinterpreting or using it for it. But if they.
It's baked into the philosophy of CRT, though.
But
the philosophy of CRT is not that biologically all white people are racist. It's
inadvertently racist.
Even inadvertently. But I said fact of the matter. If you have someone who is telling you inherently all white people are racist, or that you should feel racist, or you were born racist, all of that shit is ridiculous. That's not what CRT is about.
Let me just clarify.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. CRT does not say that all white people are inherently racist. CRT says that we live in an inherently racist society, and that because of that, the cultures based around, mainstream normative cultures are also inherently racist. And if you participate in those cultures and you reinforce those cultures, then you are essentially reinforcing systemic racism.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I understand, but the low resolution version is there's people are racist.
No, that's not but there's certainly aspects that examples in society, even culturally, which seems to be very relevant to your audience in terms of like how you guys have been approaching this, I assume, that like really sort of bears that out. No, I mean, the idea that I don't know, whenever like a traditionally white cast suddenly introduces a black character, all of a sudden that's seen as like woke ideology or diversity hire. I mean, if that like that thought process
based off of something.
No, not even just like, just look at, I guess the recent thing is Star Wars or something. Obi-Wan Kenobi, the new Obi-Wan Kenobi show or some shit. I haven't watched it, but from what I read, apparently there's some sort of outrage over there being this black actress who was cast in the show. She's not taking the place of a white character, like it's a new character. And they're upset because they claim that character's role in the hierarchy of Star Wars world couldn't be black. I mean, based on what?
I don't know about this
fictional,
right? But I don't know about this.
But you don't need to know about it, right?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming that no one is arguing that doesn't make any sense. I don't think there's a racial hierarchy in the world of Star Wars lore. So
but that's not my point. My point is in even like a cultural scenario that like you keep bringing up in terms of like that being like someone's judge over like a policy position, like they should, their morals align with that cultural issue. I mean, we're talking about a society that views a black person being introduced in a predominantly white series or whatever as some sort of diversity hire or or wokeism, whatever the fuck that means. I mean, if that doesn't show you that there is an inherently racist sort of viewpoint there, it doesn't mean that someone's like evil. I mean, people who are harassing the actress certainly are bad people, but I mean, just because someone would like question, why is there a black person in this, doesn't mean they're a bad person on the outright. But the fact that they even question that and view that as like, they must be trying to appeal to like wokeism or leftism, instead of it just being, no, they wanted to cast someone who is black, or that this actress just happened to be the perfect person for that role and she just happens to be black. I mean, but we have a large portion of society that views this completely differently as to what I just described in that latter scenario. They view it as wokeism or something. I mean, I don't know how you
I understand what you're saying. I mean, this is actually literally my first YouTube video like a million years ago. And the problem is, like, we can use Star Wars as an example. I mean, I don't remember really anyone complaining that Mace Windu was black in Star Wars whatsoever. And I don't remember in like a lot of movies in the early 2000s, in the 90s, there was a lot of,
Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, black people in lots of movies and all this other shit, that they were put in there for diversity reasons, or put in there because they were, the best actors for the role. I don't really remember people complaining about that. I think what's going on right now, I mean, obviously there are some people that are probably really racist, but I think most of it is that when you have a character, especially like, a recast of a character based on some property that exists, and they put a black or a non-white actor for a white, what was historically a white role, it's not the replacement that annoys people. It's that to them, it's a signal that, this is an example of the woke crowd getting their way, more so than the actual replacement saying, okay, this means that they're gaining a larger foothold in the culture. And I think that's really what sets people off.
Well, there is a tokenism. I mean,
doesn't that sort of also bolster what I'm saying and what you're
because you're saying it's
CRT.
It's based off of racial animus. No, I'm saying it's not. It's based off of a political ideology, obviously saying that this political ideology that I disagree with is gaining more prominence and mainstream appeal.
What's the political? What is the political ideology in like a black person or black people gaining more cultural prominence in like what? I'm maybe.
I'll answer the question.
That's not the CRT ideology,
right? Well, I'll answer the question. But people in the chat are saying that people were mad at her because apparently, I don't know, people didn't like her or something, or people didn't like her character in the show, like the way her character was, and then Disney accused them of being racist because they didn't like her character. I don't know. I didn't watch the show.
I haven't seen it either. Yet. But yeah, I would say that's that would be a weird thing to have happen.
We have to go into like CRT has this philosophy though that the institutions are have this thing called whiteness, and that white people can never vote against their self-interest or be magnanimous, which, I mean, that position does kind of paint all of white people as fundamentally racist. I mean,
I guess that's true. I guess that's true. And there definitely
there's no way around that.
There is an aspect of CRT that kind of, I forget the language they use exactly, that kind of means that being Black is more than your skin color, but like having some kind of authentic Black experience that you live by, where you sort of push against whatever the white mainstream culture is. I mean, that's definitely part of CRT.
Okay, how about this? How about I'm talking about, you know, higher concepts or philosophy or anything like that? How about asking questions like, what is the median income, or sorry, median wealth of a white family versus a Black family in America? Something like that, right?
Two completely different conversations.
And I agree, and I think that one is way more tangible, because and Matt keeps bringing it towards this as well. We care more about like the everyday lives of people, right? So how are they going to like improve the lives of workers, improve the lives of everything? Yeah. So
that's a great question.
Okay, so here's the question: what's the median? The median,
exactly.
The median wealth between a white family and a Black family in America.
This is the issue. Is that
wait? Are you going to answer the question first?
No, hold on. Just let's.
I am going to answer the question. I want to answer that question. Well, I want to answer the more important aspect of that question, because I think it has more to do with redlining and property values.
I totally agree. Nice.
Yeah,
okay, we're on the same page.
Well, where do you think
so go ahead.
Where does that come from?
Like, obviously came from past racism. I would never deny historical racism,
right? But you don't
or even the remnants of racism manifesting in the system currently nowadays.
Right.
Racism is evil.
Right.
We're all on board there.
The issue I have with CRT lands and the problem is that a lot of shit that I don't like and that other people don't like is snuck under that question that you just gave. If it was just an economic question and people said, you know, if a bunch of Democratic politicians were standing up saying, you know, I think we need to address these economic issues, but when I look into, you know, the ideology and philosophy of CRT, it's fucking crazy, so we're not going to focus on that, then I would have no problem. But that's not what's happening. What's happening
is, you know, historically,
let him finish.
Okay.
One at a time, guys.
All this stuff gets swept under the single banner, and it kind of becomes like this defund the police situation where different groups mean it in different ways, and everyone's carrying water and running interference with each other, and it, you know, becomes a big fucking mess, instead of just saying, listen, we don't agree with this crazy shit, but let's pick out something we do and just focus on this one issue or two issues or whatever.
But I don't know anyone running on a CRT platform or the hidden underlying messages of CRT. Like, when we talk about injustice, we are talking about those things that you just mentioned that you seem to have agreed with, that there are at the very least remnants of a racist system that still affect
disproportionate groups.
I think most people agree with that. They just disagree on what to do about it.
And they are.
I would say
even
most people. Ben Shapiro agrees on that, doesn't he?
They are teaching these concepts in public schools, so you can't deny that they're teaching
but you know the history of how CRT kind of was like started to pull into the mainstream culture. Like that was done by a very specific individual who started talking about it on Fox News and stuff like that.
He's reacting. Wait a minute, he's reacting to what was happening.
He is, but he's reacting to a program again. And I know this is the first version of CRT, and I know your chat like despises when I talk about this, but this was originally in like law school, and that was just basically them observing. Like, a lot of this has to do with them observing the way society itself works, not trying to tell certain groups, by the way, you're racist, or by the way, you are inherently racist because you are upholding these kind of systems or something like that, right?
That's not quite accurate. but to answer Matt's question before that, which is to say, how is this manifesting? It was manifesting in all these anti-CRT bills. This would have been a perfect chance for the Democrats to say, you know, to read these bills and say, you know, these bills don't even mention CRT. They're mostly innocuous. If these bills were brought forward in the 60s, Martin Luther King Jr. would be doing backflips because everything here reads like something out of the civil rights era. And we're just going to sign off on this. And then, you know, maybe we'll castigate the Republicans for not focusing on something important. But they didn't do that. They pushed back and said, you are racist for trying to pass these bills.
What are you talking about? The anti-CRT bills?
The anti-CRT bills, right.
Right, but we know that those bills are so broad that in some scenarios they literally even ban discussion of Martin Luther King Junior in schools.
No,
I mean,
that didn't happen.
I've seen some of the I can't pull up the one right now that I saw that was so broad that MLK Jr.'s own words would be
right. I know. Yeah, because I know what you're talking about. Basically, what happened was after George Floyd, it wasn't even related to CRT ban. It was after George Floyd, a school implemented a new, I don't know, some kind of racial diversity knowledge program where they added a bunch of books. I don't know if they changed any of the classes. They just had like a bunch of books available in the library based around racial diversity issues. And some parents complained about some of the books. And so the school district basically just removed all of the books that they implemented and said, we're going to do a full manual review of all these books. And then they never got around to it. And then an article comes out and says, well, one of those books that was removed from the library was a Martin Luther King Jr. book. Therefore, vis-a-vis, they've banned a Martin Luther King Jr. because of some anti-CRT law, which is not quite, or not even really what happened in the situation.
Would you agree that CRT is descriptive and not prescriptive?
No, it's a critical theory. How it's definitionally prescriptive.
So I think that's where the disconnect comes from, because I think what Chris Rufo did when he started bringing CRT into the mainstream and talking about this is that rather look at it from something that analyzes society broadly and being like, this is basically what we see as the results of these systems in place, it starts to become something in which people think they're trying to impose some kind of new, I don't know, societal guide based on that's where it became a cultural issue rather than something that was simply used for analysis in legal terms.
Lance, you're a socialist.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a critical theory. Critical theories, by definition, are prescriptive. They're about trying to change society in some prescriptive way.
Yeah, don't you remember Marx? The point is not.
Well, not Marx.
Give me the Marx quote. I'm curious.
Is it Engels? That's Engels.
No, not Engels. What was the critical theory?
I'd like to hear either. Give me the Marx quote related to this.
What's the fucking? I'm blanking. I'm like, who's the critical theory guy?
The point is not to understand society, but to change it. That's Marx. Yeah.
No. It begins with an M.
Well, anyway, hey guys, we've been streaming.
Yeah, wait, I gotta get this. Max Horkheimer, thank you, Max Horkheimer, of the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory.
This has been an interesting discussion. You did not win us over to the socialism position. Thank you for trying.
I didn't know I wasn't tempted to do that at all.
I'm obviously joking around.
If Lance told me that was the point, I would have said, peace, I'm not doing this.
Oh, I did not tell him that was the point. I was curious though, did we at least move you a little bit in terms of the groomer stuff and Libs of TikTok, at least?
I mean, we don't call people groomers. That was my
no, I know you don't, but I'm just curious, broadly speaking, did you
Lance, you've been calling people Nazis, homophobes, transphobes, racist for the last 5 years. I mean, people are going to call you a groomer, man. You kind of made this bet. Like, what do you want from me?
Wait, are you doing the exact thing towards me right now?
What do you mean?
I called it out.
But I don't care. Honestly, I don't care if people are calling Lance a groomer.
Thanks, Matt. Debate partner. High five.
No, but I don't care if people call me a groomer either.
Okay, well that's a good attitude right there. Yeah,
I've had that word thrown at me a bazillion times throughout the last.
Oh, and worse. Way worse. Oh yeah, all over the place.
But my issue is when these attacks are directed towards powerless people in the LGBTQ community, used to harass them when they have no support system. They're not clean up your room. They're not used to this stuff like perhaps me or Lance is, nor do they want to be used to this stuff like I guess me and Lance have to become or became. You know, and people really do. This stuff gets to them and it hurts them in a way that like. I'm not. Well, if
someone is okay groomering somebody who's obviously got mental problems and teetering on the edge, I do not condone that in any way, shape, or form, right? But if somebody is okay groomering AOC, I mean,
hey, thank you so much, Nico Suris. Everybody, go check out Nico Suris' channel. Go follow Nico Suris. That rate is very appreciated. Sorry, we're in the middle of a debate right now, so that's why I'm sending this. I'll thank you right afterwards.
We're making that distinction. Yeah, sounds like we're both in agreement.
I'm talking about targeted hurt. Here, let me give you an example. Maybe this is a good way to wrap up. I'm not going to say I'm going to get the last word, but like I'll wrap up on my end, then you guys could take it from there. After the shooting in Texas, I read an interview with one of the teachers who basically gave this, and I've heard this from so many teachers, the same line of thought. They asked her like what was going through her mind, and she said something like, this isn't verbatim, this is like the general sense of what she said. She said like, general sense of what she was asked, excuse me, because this is what she said. She said, these are my kids. That's how I view them. I view them as my children. They're not my students. They're my children. And so I immediately went into like the mode of parent, like defend them, take care of them, do what I can to make sure, because as a teacher, I view them as my children. And I've heard that from so many teachers. So many teachers are with their kids, their students, so many hours a day, teaching them, getting to know them, that they do view them in a sense as like almost their own children. And that Libs of TikTok account, I've seen this from many other right-wingers too, I've seen them attack LGBTQ teachers for saying that same exact thing on like TikTok or whatever when talking about their students. Like, I view these as my kids, and if their parents don't accept them as who they are, if they come out to their parents, then I let them know that I accept them, and I view you as my child. Same exact thought process, same exact thing. They would never think of attacking that Texas teacher for treating those students as her own. Yet they attack that LGBTQ teacher for treating her students as her own. And they call her a groomer for that, or they call him a groomer for that. Well, I think that's a clear disconnect. No better example of how that word is used specifically to go after LGBTQ people, specifically LGBTQ educators too. And I mean, I think it's wrong. I think it's horrible. And I think someone who chooses to do what in my estimation is one of the hardest jobs on the planet, teaching, and treat their kids that good. I mean, those are the teachers who kids grow up and say like they changed the trajectory of my life for the better. Those are good teachers. And to see them smeared and attacked that way when they're not public figures, they're not asking for it. I think it's horrible. I really do.
I mean, I think the difference I would say is that there's a difference between like a teacher saying she's trying to like physically prevent the children from getting shot or something, where the problem that people have with the teachers generally that are on the Libs of TikTok account is that they believe that the teacher is trying to sort of indoctrinate the child with some idea about gender and sex and social constructionism and all this other stuff, which the parents don't believe in. And they're like, listen, I send my child to public school to learn about, reading, writing, arithmetic and sort of like general knowledge and not, political things that I don't agree in. That's where the disagreement comes from.
That's such like a weird belief though. Like I don't like
why is that weird?
No, like the idea that like kids would be indoctrinated into becoming gay or lesbian or something. Like
that's not
well, I think that's
his
true.
Belief. Yeah.
I think that's true for gay and lesbian. I don't think that's true for non-binary, and I do think there's going to be a wave of trans regret going forward in the future.
A wave of what? I'm sorry.
Trans regret in the future.
Matt,
I think it's a little different than being gay.
Matt, if you had an extremely right-wing teacher that was concerned for the eternal soul of the children and wanted to indoctrinate them into the religion of Christianity, like they really believed in their heart that this kid or their family could burn in hell for all eternity.
It's actually really funny you bring up this scenario because I was a Catholic school kid.
Right.
I was very religious actually. I was brought up that way. I was an altar boy for many years. I was an altar server. Let me tell you, nothing pushed me away actually than those very same teachings. I mean, I learned more about the Catholic religion based on what I was taught.
But I'm assuming you would be against that in a public school setting. If a teacher, this is not a Catholic school, this is a public school where the teacher is taking it, of their own volition because of their personal belief to teach these children that they need to accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. Otherwise, they're going to burn in hell.
No, I think if a kid is being mocked or attacked for being Christian in their public school, that teacher should without a doubt stand up for that kid and stand up for that kid's ability to be a Christian.
I don't think anyone's denying that.
Yeah.
Well, but that's what these discussions about LGBTQ students are. It's kids who
really.
I mean, then what do you think? Like, I don't understand what
it's about trying to teach kids about that there's this separation between gender and sex and gender identity and all this other stuff to young children. That's
I mean, to me,
it's not about preventing them from. I mean, I don't think anyone's. Well, I just want to say, I don't think anyone's against a teacher preventing bullying. That's not really the conversation.
You guys just cut out for me. I'm sorry.
So I say, I don't think anyone has a problem with a teacher preventing bullying. I don't think that's what's being referred to in these situations.
Right. But that's not the only thing, though. They're just teaching also that to be accepting of people who, like, listen, if the idea that, like, you learning about this stuff turns you into it, then I should be the gayest motherfucker on the planet. I mean, seriously, but it's just not true.
I thought you went to Catholic school.
It's just not. Well, I also was taught
neither one of us
be very accepting of people of all sexual orientation, all gender.
Right. I mean, but again, I mean, I don't have a problem with anyone learning saying you should be accepting of people, not judge them.
But that's what it is, though. It's about just learning about.
That's not what the genderbread person is, or the gender unicorn. That's not what any of these conversations about gender identity are.
No,
I mean, it's just in my, this is just going to be something we disagree because it's how you interpret it and how I interpret it. But what I see is that we are in a place where society, at least in the school system, is saying, listen, there are LGBTQ people that you are going to come across in your life. Some of them are your classmates. This is who they are. This is what they are. And we should be understanding and accepting of them. That's all I view it. I mean, if you're not LGBTQ, if you weren't born that way, I mean, I don't see how you end up walking out of any of that saying you are.
Why can't we just teach that we should be accepting of everyone and, let the details work themselves out?
Of course, but there's no, broadly speaking, there's no like anti-straight movement or anything like that. Though, that's inherited.
What Adam is saying is, instead of trying to fixate on something specific, just say, don't judge people on, their biology or their race or their gender or whatever.
Well, because
just leave it at that. Why do you have to get into a break?
Because broadly speaking, people who are straight aren't persecuted in society, kind of thing. That's kind of the reason.
Other complicated stuff.
Do you guys have kids? I mean, kids are generally very curious. My son asks me the most random, amazing things all the time. I don't just say, just be accepting of it. Just, it is what it is. Everyone's equal. No, I explain to him what it is he's asking. But there's nothing
wrong with a teacher saying, ask your parent that, right? If a kid says, what happens after you, if a kid asks their teacher, what happens after you die? I don't think the teacher should be answering that question.
I mean, I think it's fine, actually. I think it's
real, but that's something that none of us know. It's kind of like we don't know what happens when you die, but we do know that there are stable families when there are two dads. There's stable families when there are two moms. That's not a problem, right?
I fundamentally disagree with you. If a child asks their public school teacher what happens when you die, they should not give an answer. They should say,
I didn't say anything in the opposite direction. I said we don't know the answer to that. So that is something that is unanswerable. That's something that's unanswerable. Whereas is a family with two dads or two moms stable? Yes. Is it a healthy environment? Yes. That's very different. That's one thing no one knows the answer to versus something that we do know the answer to.
Yes. Yeah. That's the thing. Like we don't know what those kids are.
I don't think teachers should be derogatory against LGBT people, if that's what you're asking. Obviously that's
no. That's not what I no. But I just, that's, I mean, again, you're viewing it completely differently than me. I just, that's how I view it. I mean, and that's
it's a win. It's a win if we can at least understand each other's perspectives. A lot of these conversations take place and nobody really even understands you.
Well, I don't think that. I think Matt is viewing this in a very narrow lens of acceptance, which necessitates an explanation of whatever the thing is. And I don't think that's required whatsoever. And I think it's totally fine for parents not to want their children to learn about, gender LGBT issues in class, besides the teacher saying, don't bully and be a bigot.
I mean, then it's very simple. If you don't want your kid being taught these things, I mean, there's other options. I mean, if you're a religious person, you don't send your kid to public school and demand they get taught Judaism or Islam or
why should they be demanded to be taught like a political ideology.
But they're not being
in a
demanded.
public-
They're not
in a
being
public
demanded.
school
There's a
where the
difference
least-
between answering a question, right? Like, do you think there's anything
don't
wrong with
view
saying
it
that
as
there are
that.
families
I know
with
you
two
don't view it,
mummies
but wait,
and two
well,
daddies?
okay.
There are
Is that
people
a
that can't
problem?
afford
What do you
privacy.
feel
about-
be? Would it
what
be
do
This
you
is
feel
very
about-
elitist,
wait?
Matt.
Would it be easier, since you don't view the gender identity stuff as political ideology? Would you view the CRT stuff as a political ideology?
That's not taught to children, though.
Well, they talk about systemic racism to children, Lance, and they talk about white privilege and all this other stuff.
Can you tell me? Like, I don't know this about the American education system, but in elementary school or in kindergarten, they talk about systemic racism. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
No, it wasn't you, Matt. It was with Daryl Davis when Tim Pool brought out the the whiteness contract chart that they were teaching to, I think like 8 or 9-year-old kids, like some school districts being sued because there are these school books for little kids that are teaching them about how whiteness is bad, and they use the the whiteness has all this systemic.
So in what grade?
There's no textbook saying
it's not a textbook. It's like a book made for kids.
There's nothing saying whiteness is bad, though.
They say wait.
There's that adding some real color commentary.
No. There's wait. You understand when they say whiteness?
So in kindergarten they're taught whiteness is bad. That's a thing.
Specific. What'd you say?
I'm saying they're being taught in kindergarten or in elementary school in the U.S. that whiteness is bad. Like, that's part of the curriculum.
Yeah, in some places, yes.
Where?
I'll have to bring. I think it was in Virginia or something. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember where it was. At least here's your favorite, Christopher Rufo. At least 25 public school districts in 12 states are now teaching the book "Not My Idea," a book that claims whiteness is the devil, luring children with the promise of stolen land and stolen riches. Critical race theory is driving public education.
That sounds like the right-wing description, colorful description of it. That's the book's actual summarized flap summary.
It says well, I don't know what the summarized flap is. The page that everyone points to it says on one page, whiteness is a bad deal. It always was. And then on the next page, it has a picture of a contract with a devil tail and money coming out of it. And it says, contract binding you to whiteness. You get stolen land, stolen riches, stolen favors. Whiteness gets to mess endlessly with the lives of your friends, neighbors, loved ones, and all fellow humans of color. Your soul sign below.
So I just looked this book up because it's
horrible.
It's okay. So this book's new to me, but I just looked it up, and this book says it's about a kid seeing TV news coverage about things happening and whether or not they feel safe. And then they visit their aunt and uncle where the TV is always on, and they show their response to rally and police shooting. And this is being taught as a curriculum, broadly speaking.
I mean, according to Christopher Rufo and according to a lawsuit,
But wait.
I'll give you a Reddit link in the Zoom chat if you want to look at the picture I'm talking about.
Sure, but I've got the book before me right now. Okay. It doesn't teach that whiteness is bad or that
it has this page in it. What do you mean?
It says
contract binding you to whiteness.
But there's like
don't sign that contract.
But hold on, there's like 13,000 school districts in the U.S. Like, how many of them are being taught this as part of the curriculum? A, and then B, does this book distinctly teach white kids to be ashamed of themselves? I don't think that's the purpose of this book.
Let's say there's only one student where they're shaming people out of being gay. Does that make it okay?
Wait. Before we talk about what the
but is that the point of the book?
You would agree that what I read to you and looking at this picture is pretty yikesy and shouldn't be taught to elementary school kids or really any public school kids.
Okay, wait, let me find the link to the picture. You said you put it in this chat?
In Zoom, if you see where it says more, there's like 3 little dots.
Yeah.
And you click it and it'll say chat and it'll open a little new window and there's a little link that I think you can click on. It brings up the picture.
Ooh, this is very yikesy. That's what you guys say, right?
Yes.
I want to speak.
We do say yikes.
I don't want to talk too much about a book I haven't read, but
I'm curious. I want to see this book.
I mean, it says there's also pages that say racism was not your idea. You don't need to defend it. You can bring your curiosity to learn about it and see what is true. It's racism was not your idea. It's very specifically not blaming the child for
no, of course. I never said
it's not. I mean,
but it's associating whiteness with a lot of like pretty fucking racialized, crazy ideas, isn't it?
Contract. I'm looking at this.
All right, guys. Adam's getting tired.
I'll check out this book.
All right, look it up. I forget. I think it's
I want
either
to.
Virginia.
I want to learn more
or
about this book. I
Mississippi
want to
that
learn
has
more about
this
how it's being
lawsuit.
taught in schools for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting closer here. So it wasn't a total failure, right? I mean,
would you agree we almost ended racism with this conversation?
We did. You know what? I'm so glad you brought that up.
Can we end
almost ended?
whiteness?
We were on the precipice of ending racism, and we just couldn't quite do it.
I feel like if we all how about this? Let's focus on building more houses, getting the cost of housing down, so young people can actually afford to own a home.
There you go.
I'm shocked that 4 white guys got into a room together and we didn't end up talking about Leif Erikson. I'm really surprised. I could not believe this was possible.
Listen, you bigot. Okay, I have no Swede or Norwegian or whatever the fuck relationship that he has. I'm a half Russian Romanian or something. Okay, and all 100% American.
Yeah.
Get out of here with that Leif Erikson shit.
Right.
So
all right, guys. This was interesting. I thought there were definitely sections that were.
Before we go,
we're very. Oh, go ahead.
I have 3 super important questions to ask
no,
you guys.
don't do this. They're cringy, guys. Get ready.
Okay,
three. It better be 3 really short questions.
They are short. Okay, number 1. Okay. Are owls birds?
I would assume.
Are owls birds? Yes.
I honestly don't know. Yes would be my
wings,
guess.
right?
Yes, we have one. I don't know.
Yeah, I would assume yes. My guess would be yes.
Okay.
If I'm about to like fucking take a huge L here, I'll accept it.
No,
if you have to copy,
you almost said Lance, but no, you're correct. Owls are in fact birds. Okay.
Nice. Didn't take an L.
Number 2.
Sweet.
Do you think that you could take a horse-sized duck in a fight?
A horse-sized duck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's take? Just survive?
Like,
or
could
take
you
them
could you
No.
defeat? Could you
No.
kill?
No.
You're gonna have this horse-sized duck.
There's
dinner.
Canadian geese all over the place here. They're vicious as fuck. They will fuck you up. I do not think if they
Look
were
at this.
like
A
horse-sized.
realist.
Yeah, no, I would get fucked
I would
up.
say I cannot either. Yeah.
I would get fucked up.
You guys. You guys are all pussies. Okay. I could take that fucking horse-sized duck easy. You just knock out his hollow bones. You just knock out his legs.
He's lying.
Do I get some guns or what? Do I get some American guns? Can I have an AR-15 or something?
Adam doesn't want me to ask the 3rd question
because it's like a pornography question.
Do you want to ask? Do you want to answer a question about pornography?
Go. I don't care. Go ahead.
Okay. When you when you watch porn,
if you watch porn, obviously, Matt is a good Catholic boy.
There you go.
I have seen a porn. I have seen at least one porn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We've got that. They have seen porn. Do you view it like voyeuristically, like these are people that you're watching have sex, or do you imagine that you're like in it and you're kind of putting your point of view into the scene?
Depends on the porn.
No, not. I'm not doing like my own VR shit. No,
no, listen. Okay, I'm not saying that you literally put like a VR and goggles on. You understand that? I'm saying like conceptually.
I know.
Okay.
Look at it like you're viewing actors and actresses. That's how I do it.
So you do view it like you're looking at actors and actresses.
Yeah.
Okay, and Lance,
Okay.
what
depends on the porn. Depends on the scene. Maybe I'm enjoying it from the distance, or maybe I'm POVing. Yeah.
Wow.
Really?
Okay. Interesting.
Oh,
okay.
wow.
Interesting. Okay. Well, there you go. See, people don't realize how different people's perceptions of porn are. So I just find it fascinating.
Lance, you view yourself as the stepbrother?
Oh my god.
Who knew the most brutal takedown would come from your butt, from your flank?
Yeah. Ouch.
How does he walk away from that one?
Ouch.
Holy shit.
Okay, that was good. That was good.
That was good. There, you got some memes out of it. You got some
You're
clips.
officially funnier than Dave Rubin, Matt.
That's a low bar. Come on, y'all got to admit that's a low bar. That's like bottom barrel bar. Come on.
Listen, don't feel bad, okay? Don't feel bad, Lance. I feel I'm the stepbrother too. Anyways, thanks for coming. This was a great conversation, and I'm glad I asked the most pertinent questions at the end. I think it really shows people what's important here.
Now we take the streams down because we stream for a long time, but we're going to clip this out obviously and post it on our channel. So you guys are welcome to post it too if you feel so inclined. So
man, sounds good.
Yeah, thanks for the debate.
Right.
Was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for reaching out, Lance.
Thanks
We'll talk
for
again.
No problem. Yeah. Oh, and tell me about Sargon of Akkad. What's happening with that? Let him.
We'll ask.
I will ask him. I will officially ask him.
Okay.
If I forget, remind me and I will ask him.
All right, sounds good.
Take care, guys.
I'll make sure he does it. Okay.
Okay.
Sure you will.
Woo! How y'all feel, everybody? Was that basically a warm enema of a conversation? I don't know. I know Chad is mad. Chad is furious. Like, why would you ever have these kind of conversations? I kind of had a blast. Chat was angry the entire time. I absolutely saw it. If I was to review the debate just off the cuff right now, I thought the first half of it was very productive, and then I think the second half of it was super derailed all over the place. But I thought the first half was very good. I am suing you for brain damage. Well, fine. I'll take it. I'll take all the lawsuits, you know? It's really impressive how two people with worms can work their computers. I don't mind you having this conversation, but oh boy, they sure were libs. There were a few mask off moments. Debate was interesting, but not worth the internet comment etiquette premature ending. I love that. It's like, if my one takeaway from all of this was that, Lance, why did you stop internet comment etiquette? Don't worry, we're going to watch that, okay? I'll play it. I'll play the entire thing. I'll be honest with you. I didn't think we were going to get roped so much into trans debates, and I hate when there's all cis panels talking about trans issues, because it's like, oh, well, yet another cis panel debating on whether or not, trans people are valid or not. So, that's not where I thought the whole thing was going to get roped into and kind of get sucked into. I also didn't think we'd be talking about CRT, to be totally honest. I have to do the opposite of what they stated I would do, and immediately start posting a whole bunch of out of context clips, label them as Nazis, as is the only thing I know how to do. So I'll basically take a whole bunch of highlights from that debate, and then I'll clip them, and then I'll upload all of them to Twitter, one after the other, and I'll be like, here's them being a Nazi, here's them, they're just Nazis. That's basically the only response I have to any of this, So that's going to be the entire feature of them. Yeah, that'll be the whole thing. I'm joking, by the way. I don't know if they're watching right now. Obviously, I'm not going to do that. Here's the thing. I think there is, without a question, a massive echo chamber on the left, and so I've always been someone who said that we should branch out and try to talk to people who are libs or right wingers and see where the points of disagreement are. I think one of the biggest takeaways from that is that there's this idea, I guess broadly speaking, in the centrist crowd as well as the right wing crowd, because I was looking at their chat. Fuck, do they hate me? Holy shit. I knew they despised me, but I didn't know with like such a passion. It was just basically like free flowing, like, fuck, I hate this landscape. Over and over and over. Their chat was wild, and whatever, I don't know, goodwill Matt may have had via the Tim Pool debate destroyed the entire chat. Anytime Matt spoke, it would be the same thing, like, oh, this guy is fucking, he may as well be a Klan member and stuff like that. And I was like, wow, that's wild. Lance is 40% gay. I am not. That is not true. I'm 25% gay. Let's be accurate. There's science involved in all this kind of stuff, so we know, so we totally know. But anyways, where I see this big disconnect, and maybe this is something that I got to work on for the messaging, is that right-wingers seem to be equating for some reason the persecution of you being a right-winger or the persecution of you being a conservative as an equivalent to you being trans, and the way that people will associate with you and the way that society broadly speaks will vilify you. It's one of the biggest false equivalencies I've ever heard, but it kept on getting brought up over and over and over again, and it's obviously completely ridiculous. It's absurd, but it's ridiculous and absurd to people in lefty circles, right? Like we obviously can recognize that as being just, it's nuts, because like one of those things is not something in which you were born. You're not born conservative. You're not born a right winger. And if you feel that you're broadly speaking persecuted for being those kind of things, that's very different than you are born this way and then you are trying to get society to recognize it, and you are persecuted for that. Those two things are very, very different. But that is, I guess, where a lot of right-wing ideology, and even maybe some centrist and liberal ideology, is pointing towards right now, is this idea of the two are conflating with each other. And I haven't figured out yet, because this is very fresh, how to bridge that gap. But I would like to figure out the way to make them recognize that is in fact not the case, you know? It reminds me of the Tim Pool talk with the Rugged Man when he was saying that he was persecuted growing up and that his experience was valid as any BIPOC. Yeah, I think that is probably pretty apt. That's probably pretty comparable at the end of the day. I'm pretty sure they are where they claim you can't buy ivermectin over the shelf. We didn't get to talk too much about ivermectin at the end of the day. I'd say all in though. It was a ton of fun. I fucking miss debating. I got really heated at the first half because once we started about trans issues, I was like, no, we got to talk about the facts or the feelings. We're dealing way too much with feelings. So it's, sorry if you saw me get a little bit spicy there, but that was basically, I don't have a large tolerance for that kind of stuff. But for the second half, I was way more calm and collected. I thought, I don't know, you tell me, chat. I'm probably going to be like, blah. I think the whole thing is going to be an amazing fodder for Destiny and Lauren Southern, because I didn't know that I was going to get that gotcha in the middle where they're like, oh, we want to talk to you about the Lauren Southern debate. Although I still do remain on the record that I no way told Dylan Burns that was like something that I was prepping for, because it wasn't something that I was actually prepping for. I was actually kind of just off the cuff near the end of it. You were very kind to them. I try to be very kind to people, even people I disagree with.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we are prepared to embark on a mighty jihad in your name. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble jester, attempting in vain to get you to laugh. To our valiant knights of the Round Table, Benji Arnie, Tech Tink, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Mayred, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood. It doesn't matter what I believe, it only matters what I can prove. Egbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Jenna Tao, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevbot, EXE, Brian Ephraim, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Incosin, Agent NDN, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our mugs and salute our brave heroes off to another glorious conquest.